Podmortem would like to thank Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Original Cinematic is an independent production company that has made it their mission to create, produce, and promote films that are inclusive, honor women, promote the LGBTQIA+ community, and provide prominent positions and roles to POC actors and filmmakers, and promote the films of marginalized and underrepresented populations. These are all things that are extremely important to our podcast as well.
Original Cinematic is currently accepting scripts and treatments. Both William and Xxena Rush are also available via email or Zoom to discuss writing and provide input and resources to all aspiring writers, free of charge. Their information will be made available in the show notes. There may be delays due to a hectic schedule and all projects being read on a first-come, first-served basis, but everything will be read and responded to. William Rush has individually produced numerous projects, including Pack is Here, Before, The Cottage, The Winemaker, and Day by Day. Their multi-award-winning film Group premiered and was celebrated at multiple film festivals as well as screenings, both in person and via Zoom, that were graciously made available to us and our patrons.
Original Cinematic has many exciting projects on the horizon. Their next film, Immersion, has been completed. The award-winning Sweetener is in development. Fetish begins shooting in September, and Encore will begin next spring. Their documentary, Women in Conversation, is slated for a September release, and we're looking forward to each and every one of them. It is truly an honor to partner with Original Cinematic, and we can't thank them enough for their contribution to our show. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Salutations! Welcome to Pod Mortem. I'm Travis Hunter-Sayapin, joined as always by my co-hosts, my sister and my brother-in-law.
Hi, I'm Reneé Hunter-Vasquez.
Hi, I'm John Paul Vasquez.
This week, we're broadcasting live from Talbot Castle, discussing the 1941 horror classic, The Wolfman. This film was directed by George Waggner from a screenplay by Kurt Siodmak. Following the success of previous Universal horror pictures, the studio sought to create yet another classic creature of the night. Drawing inspiration from previous iterations and ancient folk tales, while also establishing mythology wholly its own, The Wolfman offered audiences an exciting experience to sink their teeth into. Featuring fantastic makeup for its time, a gorgeously gothic atmosphere, and a tantalizing tale of human tragedy, The Wolfman would not only attain financial success and spawn several sequels, spin-offs, remakes, and reboots, but it would also inspire countless projects to follow in its paw prints in the 84 years since its release. This film was suggested to us by friends of the show, Lala Thomas, Michelle Moore, Evan Lakes, Brian, and Alan Johnston. We'd like to thank each and every one of them for their continued support of the show, as well as this suggestion. So, The Wolfman. What were your first impressions on the film?
So this was a first-time watch for me. We all know The Wolfman. You know what I mean? There's been a bunch of remakes and other movies and stuff, and I think he was on Scooby-Doo. I'm not sure.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But this wasn't too bad. I will say that this wasn't my favorite Universal monster movie. Because I know we have covered others, not all of them, but we have already kind of dived into the pool. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. This was I guess the origin of the Wolfman
in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I don't remember if I have ever watched this before. I don't remember it. This was essentially a first time watch for me as well, and it's not, like you said, it's not my favorite Universal that we've covered. I think that there are a lot of cool things to it. I really like the makeup. I like the music a lot.
Yeah.
I think what we're missing here is there is a depth to the other monsters that we've covered. and the human or like previous version of these monsters or even people around them.
Okay.
I think that that's kind of what I'm missing in the Wolfman because I don't like him. I don't really like the man that becomes the Wolfman.
Mhm.
Right.
And I think maybe if there was a little more depth, even if I don't like him, but like he's going through, so you know what I mean? I don't know. There just was not enough for me to, excuse me, but sink my teeth into.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's just something missing here, and I've really been enjoying going through these and appreciating where a lot of shit comes from. You know what I mean? And again, it's not like I watched this and was like, boo, you know what I mean? But I was like, oh, that's just for me personally not on par with the other. I'm trying to think of specifics, but I think maybe all of the other ones that we've covered for me.
Yeah, you know what? Real quick, thinking about it, you saying that is right, because Frankenstein's monster, Frankie, he was lonely, he wanted
Yes.
a friend.
Uh-huh.
Drac was trying to relocate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just needed a good real estate agent.
Yeah.
You know.
They all do.
I mean, there was a purpose. Invisible Man, he was on some shit.
He was
Well,
on some
he-
shit.
yeah.
He was on some shit. But again, that was entertaining on a whole other level.
Right.
And I think even Frankenstein's monster, like we were all talking about in The Bride of Frankenstein, like a scene almost moving us to tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is this depth, there's this tragedy, which I guess like at its core, yeah, the story is, whether you've seen this movie or not, you know how a werewolf is made. Like when a man loves a wolf, no, I'm just kidding. You know how it happens. You know what I mean? So that is tragic. That is a tragic tale. But watching this film, I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, maybe it is just because I flat out do not give a fuck about this dude. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care about him. In fact, I don't like him.
I was going to say, I think it's just by virtue of who it's happening to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Because when things do start to get going in that direction,
Yeah.
you are just kind of like, oh, that sucks, man. Like,
No, exactly.
like, it is a real shame that you got to go through that.
Yeah.
But
Oh, bro, fuck.
but what is established with him, the way that we meet him even, it's just like, okay, you know?
Yeah.
There were other iterations of this character in previous drafts of the screenplay that might have made him a little more sympathetic, and we'll talk about that as things go on.
Okay.
But I just feel like the version of this character that we get, I mean, again, it's tragic, everything that he goes through, but there's a lot of setup that just kind of isn't there.
Yes.
And the stakes emotionally are there for him personally, but for the people around him, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But this, for me, this was not one of the Universal horror pictures that I watched a lot as a kid with our mom.
Okay.
We really primarily rewatched a lot The Invisible Man,
Yeah.
Dracula, probably Frankenstein a little bit more. And honestly, I want to give a little bit of a hat tip to The Mummy as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I feel like The Mummy also had some emotional weight to it with Boris Karloff.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And this lifetime, this eternal love.
Yeah.
That's much more interesting than what is going on here, I will say.
Yeah.
But see, and thank you for bringing up The Mummy, because I forgot, but even that, and these movies are all very short.
Yes.
But even that, we get what's going on in those other movies.
Mhm.
I know we get what's going on here, but it does seem very just like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Todd got some bad news.
Yeah.
No, you nailed it when you're like, oh, that sucks. You got to go through that.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
bad. I wouldn't want that.
No,
Yeah.
that sucks for anybody, but it's like, oh, okay.
And I just feel the thing is, I think the thing that makes it a little bit difficult is that I feel like the performances are fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, you have Claude Rains, you have Lon Chaney Jr., you have this entire cast of people that are really putting in some really good work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's maybe just the characterization that doesn't really, that kind of falls flat.
Okay.
But I really just want to repeat what you said of just being so impressed by the makeup for the time
Mhm.
Yeah.
and creating such an iconic look that is honestly, a lot of people, when you think of a werewolf, this is the first place you go.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also was really impressed by the set design.
Yeah.
And not just of the castle, but of this marsh that we spent a lot of time in.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
the gothic atmosphere of this place is sublime. And when you accompany that with the music that they use, that they wrote for this film, it's just really impressive. And it really does put you into this perfect mood of what these Universal pictures are trying to evoke from you.
Yeah. And I did notice that, but you're right. This movie did do a very good job of, you can tell they're on a set. But it doesn't take you out of it. It doesn't make it any less believable. Like, oh, no, they are outside.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And I think the interiors of Talbot Castle are pretty fantastic, too.
Yeah.
But I think that while I really appreciate the tragedy of it, because it's a really tragic story.
Mm-hmm.
It is, like we're saying, it's just things like just the story beats and how we get there. And as is standard with Universal Pictures, you get in, you get out.
Get the fuck out. Yeah.
That story is done.
When it's over, it's over.
And I mean, there are a lot of things that are pretty obvious as you're watching it now, but it's difficult as well to watch it through the 2025 lens.
Yeah.
And try to put yourself there in 1941 when all these things are kind of brand new.
Yeah.
You know, it's very clear. It's very clear who is a werewolf and who isn't or whatever. But I think that there is a lot of respect to be paid to this film for all that it did establish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it will always hold a very special place in the genre for what it did for it.
Yeah.
But before we do get into the film, I wanted to talk about the production of the film.
Okay.
I got a lot of information from a featurette called Monster by Moonlight, another featurette called The Wolfman from Ancient Curse to Modern Myth, and a commentary track by film historian Tom Weaver. So the seeds of 1941, The Wolfman, can actually be tracked back to 1931.
Okay.
And this is when Universal was fresh off of the success of Frankenstein, and they were actually seeking to create a new creature feature to capitalize on the newfound star power of Boris Karloff. So they brought in Robert Florey, who at the time was working on the film Murders in the Rue Morgue, and he wrote a film titled The Wolfman, which actually featured the story of a boy who was raised by the wolves who slaughtered his family.
Huh.
Okay.
And then it's, of course, discovered after he is rescued and brought back to civilization that the boy has become a werewolf.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I don't know the connection there or how that works, but there are a lot of things that are worked out in later years of how werewolves become werewolves.
Yeah.
But at the time, a lot of the themes in the film were considered way too controversial. The biggest one of which is Florey had an idea of a scene where the main character would turn into a werewolf inside of a church confessional booth.
Oh, I bet they weren't ready for that.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, and so they feared a kind of terrible reaction from the Catholic Church, and so the Wolfman was shelved.
Yeah.
But Universal would go on to make Werewolf of London in 1935, which has the distinction of being the first ever feature film about a werewolf.
Okay.
And it ended up incorporating some elements of Florey's screenplay, but it also borrowed a lot from Jekyll and Hyde, which led to some criticism of the story.
Okay.
It does, in a lot of ways, the way that they described it, it does feel almost like training wheels for the Wolfman that was to come, because they had a kind of a werewolf transformation makeup. It was very subtle, and it was not as detailed as what we get in this film.
Yeah.
But it was also designed by Jack Pierce.
Oh.
So it's kind of like we're leading towards where we're meant to go.
Yeah.
But another person who did have a crack at Florey's screenplay was Kurt Siodmak. And he looked at it and read it, but really whenever he wrote this film, only decided to use the title as a jumping off point. He wanted to craft his own werewolf mythology and create a story that was reminiscent, according to him, of a Greek tragedy.
Okay.
Which we do kind of get in some ways in this film.
Yeah.
Right.
But I did read a lot of conflicting information. Some sources said that he chose to base nothing at all on actual folklore, and then other sources said that he read different like European folklore for years on lycanthropy. So it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
He didn't give a fuck or he cared so much.
Yes.
One or the other.
Somehow it's both. I don't know. But the interesting thing about it is there's a lot of elements about werewolves that are 100% established by Siodmak that, according to film historians, it is so established by him that it becomes difficult to tell whether it began with him or with Eastern folklore.
Oh, wow.
But there are things that are completely 100% his creation, and we'll get into those a little bit later because it's a lot of things that we really have come to think are synonymous with werewolves completely.
Yeah.
But one thing that they did talk about on that featurette was the fact that Siodmak was a Jewish man who fled the Nazis in 1933, and so there are bits of imagery and ideas that could be considered social commentary that are used in this film that also continue to go on to be used in werewolf lore throughout time.
Huh.
And so they started in this film as ways of him kind of discussing those topics.
Okay.
But Siodmak's script underwent quite a few changes, and we'll kind of talk about a few of the differences when we go through the plot. But the film itself was shot in 3 weeks at Universal Studios. And sometime during production, the film's title was changed from its original title of Destiny to The Wolfman.
Huh.
It's a little...
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there is a line later from a character that kind of lends to that, but I see that being kind of a prevailing theme, but I don't think that I would, especially with what we've been calling all our other films.
It's that.
Yeah,
And I can see the connection to the previous title, but you think of all the movies that came before.
Yeah. Like The Invisible Man.
The Mummy.
Yeah.
Destiny.
It's like, oh, okay. We're switching it up.
That's fine. But The Wolfman turned out to be a massive hit for the studio, and it helped to launch the career of Lon Chaney Jr., who would go on to, I think, play the Wolfman / Lawrence Talbot in 4 more films.
Yes.
And it's really interesting because it was never really a direct sequel that he played the Wolfman in.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of crossovers, which I thought was like, it is kind of revolutionary for the time. And I do want to give a hat tip to Dr. Wolfula for kind of pointing out that it may be one of the first examples of a cinematic universe.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Where you kind of establish all these characters in their own film, and then you kind of branch out and say, hey, what if Frankenstein meets the Wolfman?
Yeah.
Which meets is really funny.
He made an appointment.
He did. Yeah. It was for coffee or whatever. But this film was also followed, of course, by several projects that were inspired by and made use of Siodmak's mythology. And, of course, there was the remake in 2010, which maybe we'll talk about someday, and a reboot of the film, which actually comes out this week, which may or may not be why we're talking about it now.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, before we curse this film, we would like to issue a warning for spoilers. Pod Mortem is a very in-depth podcast, and in thoroughly discussing horror films, we have no choice but to spoil a thing or two. If you don't wish to be spoiled, please go watch the film, then come back and enjoy the show. If you've already seen the film or don't care about spoilers, let's howl into the night. After being treated to the Universal Pictures logo, complete with triumphant fanfare, the score is overtaken by suspenseful strings, where against a background of barren trees, we get the title of the film in white text, bristly and wild like unkempt fur, The Wolfman.
I loved it, the way that the font looked.
Yeah.
I thought it looked really cool. And once again, when you go and you look at the rating for this and it's just approved, it's great every single time.
It's so wild. No pun.
Right.
But the opening continues with a montage of the main cast of characters, plucked from scenes that we've yet to see, which is actually a first for these Universal horror pictures.
I was like, well, this is new.
Yeah.
It almost felt like NCIS or something. Or like, I was like, this is a crime drama? What the hell?
It really did feel like more of a serial.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
And I will say, look, it's pretty cool to see, and it did help me with my script, I will admit.
I bet.
But fucking bold to show the werewolf as a man and say he's the Wolfman.
Yeah, dude.
Before the film's even started.
It's like, y'all could have put his name.
Yeah. But as the credits continue, we pan across a boggy, fog-filled marsh in the night, over splintering branches sprouting from the ground like long-fingered hands, and across the silhouettes of sprawling trees that surround the swamplands. The music descends from dramatic to serene, before swelling somberly as we fade to black. So this atmosphere is just brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I did learn on commentary that this was actually filmed in one of the larger studios at Universal.
Okay.
And they brought in a lot of these trees that had been kind of constructed for the film. And the space is already massive as it is. But what they kept doing is moving around the trees so that different shots and different angles, it would look as if they're in completely different areas in this forest.
Okay.
Because we see this set a lot in this film.
Yeah.
And every time it does feel like they're in a new section of the marsh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when we return, we find ourselves in the study of a home, the camera gliding over to a bookshelf stacked with encyclopedias. From off-screen, a hand reaches for one of the volumes of text, removing it from the collection with its neighbor tilting to fill its vacancy. The book is set down, pages rifled through, until we crossfade to a very pertinent paragraph inside, accompanied by a haunting harmony of strings in the score, and we read, "Lycanthropy, werewolfism, a disease of the mind in which human beings imagine that they are wolfmen. According to an old legend, which persists in certain localities, the victims actually assume the physical characteristics of an animal. There is a small village near Talbot Castle which still claims to have had gruesome experiences with this supernatural creature. The sign of the werewolf is a 5-pointed star, a pentagram." So, it's a very interesting thing because we do learn all of this in just a little bit of time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if it was maybe the concept being so new to audiences that they're like, we got to spell this out for everyone at the start.
Right, right.
And they did. And it's funny to name the setting of the film in this book.
Uh-huh.
Because it's like, no, we're here. Like this is real and this is right now. But I was like, okay, thank you for catching us up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're all on the same page, literally, now.
Ah, very good, very good. The thing that made me laugh is they said, and you see the word legend when it says, according to an old legend.
Yeah.
Legend is in capital letters. And it turns out, according to the commentary, that was a studio mandate because they wanted to make sure, I guess, not to scare people too much.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Like, you can't be a werewolf.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is we don't know where Talbot Castle is.
Right, right.
And from a ton of things that I read online, everybody's like, well, Talbot Castle is meant to be in Wales. But that's never said. That's never established.
That is one thing, and I know we talked off mic before we started recording. I didn't know where the hell they were.
No.
And I was just like, well, where are we? What's the location? I know the castle, but where's the castle located?
Yeah. And according to Tom Weaver, the historian, he said that what he suspects is that they couldn't say Wales because the way that the people are depicted in this place of how superstitious they are, it might piss off the Welsh.
Oh, so it had to be kind of like vague, or maybe Talbot Castle lives next door to you?
Yeah.
Okay, got
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And I mean, I guess that kind of explains why nobody has the same accent.
Yeah.
it. They sure don't.
But we cut to a convertible speeding down a road, its back seat packed with suitcases, and the front seat occupied by Lawrence Larry Talbot, played by Lon Chaney Jr., who flashes a smirk under the brim of his hat. His chauffeur, played by Eric Wilton, keeps his eyes on the road as Larry takes a drag of his cigarette.
So Lon Chaney Jr., we learned he's the Wolfman.
Indeed.
Explicitly,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, he was also in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman
Very
in
good.
43. He did Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 48. He was also in High Noon in 52.
Very cool. I think there's no way that anybody else holds this distinction. I didn't even dare to research it because come on.
Yeah.
But I think that he has to be the only person that has played the Wolfman, Dracula, and Frankenstein.
That is wild.
Yeah.
But he's, of course, Lon Chaney Jr. His father is Lon Chaney.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm breaking some ground here, folks. I read that he actually wanted to get into acting much earlier, but his father persuaded him not to. He was always against the idea. And it was only after Lon Chaney died that Lon Chaney Jr. did get into acting.
Wow.
Huh.
And he kind of became more well-known whenever I think he played Lenny in Of Mice and Men.
Oh.
Okay.
And his performance really caught a lot of attention. He originally wanted to be credited under his real name of Creighton Chaney, but it was studio pressure that they were like, you are Lon Chaney's son, you got to be Lon Chaney Jr. Which kind of is not fair at all.
No.
It's not, especially if this is him branching out and doing something that he wanted to do,
Yeah.
that he'd kind of been forbidden from doing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Let him have his new beginning.
Yeah.
And it's his real name.
Yeah. And the thing is that he became such a star in his own right, mostly from the success of this film, that eventually he just started being credited as Lon Chaney.
Damn.
It's like, you're... you know. But we see that the pair are fast approaching their destination. As through the trees up ahead, we pan across the expansive grounds of a property, where in the distance, a massive Gothic manor stands proud against the horizon, smoke billowing from a tall chimney and into the encroaching clouds above. And amazingly, this structure is a miniature.
What?
Yeah.
I
Get
love
outta
it.
here.
I love it.
But the chauffeur directs Larry's attention to it, announcing it as Talbot Castle, to which Larry flashes a grin, patting the chauffeur gratefully on the shoulder as he returns a smile of his own.
Uh-oh, I'm pretty sure I just read something about Talbot Castle recently.
The long-bodied luxury car parks in the moss-covered courtyard at the front of the manor. Larry promptly greeted with a firm handshake by Sir John Talbot, his father, played by Claude Rains, who welcomes him home.
We all know Claude.
We do indeed all know Claude.
Yeah.
Yes.
We know him from The Invisible Man.
Yes.
33. He also was in La Casablanca.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was nominated for an Oscar for that.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That was 42.
So right after.
Yeah.
He, honestly, I think that his performance in this film is just so good. And we learned from The Invisible Man just how commanding his voice can be.
Yeah.
And how excellent of an actor he truly is.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty cool to see him return for another Universal horror picture after being The Invisible Man.
Yeah.
He is a little more subdued because he was wilding out in The Invisible Man.
But Kendall, a butler played by Leland Hodgson, holds the car door open for Larry, who pats a hand on his father's shoulder, sharing that he's mighty glad to be home. The two walk in tandem toward the front door, Larry surveying the familiar surroundings as his shoes click across the tiles in the ornate and wood-walled room. Hat in hand, Larry chuckles that the house hasn't changed much, and Sir John concurs, not in 300 years, aside from a few modern conveniences. The pair continue over to a table that sits in front of the staircase, an empty candelabra resting on top of it, where they meet Paul Montford, played by Ralph Bellamy, who extends his hand for Larry to shake it.
So Ralph Bellamy, he was in Trading Places in 83.
Oh, wow.
Disorderlies in 87. That was with the Fat Boys. That was great. Coming to America in 88. He did a small part in that. And Pretty Woman in 90.
What?
Yeah.
This dude?
Yeah.
From the first film that you listed, I was like, wait,
Yeah,
what?
hold on.
My brain is not in that era right now.
But Larry shakes his hand eagerly as Montford shares that he just dropped by to welcome him home. Larry grins boyishly, recounting to his father that he and Paul used to snitch apples together when they were younger, and Sir John smiles up at the taller men on either side of him, revealing that now Montford is the chief constable of the district. Snitch apples means to steal them. I had to look that up.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
ask.
assumed, but I was like, I don't think those apples are doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
If he's snitched on.
We told all those apples.
We used to do it all the time.
But upon hearing his job title, this reminds Montford that he needs to get back to work. But before he departs, he confirms plans with Sir John at 9 o'clock tonight, and once again welcomes Larry back home with a joyous pat on the shoulder before exiting. The father and son walk casually together through the entryway, Larry in disbelief that Montford went on to become a cop. Sir John seems taken aback by the term, so Larry amends it to policeman, but is promptly corrected by his father, who refers to Montford as Captain Montford and says that he's retired.
All right.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how he's retired with everything that we see him doing in this film.
Yeah.
He came back.
Oh, okay. One last case.
He was 1 day till retirement.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
you misspoke.
And also, he's clearly Captain Montford, and that's his rank, and we just heard it. But even in the opening credits, when we see him, it calls him Colonel Montford.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's about.
I think they meant Colonel Mustard.
All right.
They were
Easy
thinking
mistake,
about
yeah.
Clue in 1941.
Yeah. Well, I'm always thinking about Clue, so I was. I assumed they were. Yeah,
And no, I don't know why Captain Montford, who's lived here his whole life, doesn't have a Welsh accent.
that's a good question. Also, he was so taken aback by the word cop.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, don't they say like coppa in Peaky Blinders a lot?
I started in
Like
42.
Oh,
Dude, I don't know. I was just trying to make sense of it.
I
They're
think-
Bobbies, right?
yeah.
No,
I think Larry brought it to wherever the hell it's
Yeah.
supposed to be.
this location.
This
Yeah.
indistinct, yes. But the pair gather in front of the warm, flickering flames of the fireplace, Sir John stoking the embers with a poker. But Larry stops in his tracks, gazing up at a painted portrait hanging above the mantel. A man who bears a striking resemblance to Larry is forever immortalized on the framed canvas in black tie, resting comfortably in a beautifully carved chair. Larry addresses his father, gesturing toward the painting and offering, "I'm sorry about John." Sir John takes a moment before admitting that the death of Larry's brother was a blow to all of them.
That's extremely sad.
Yeah.
But from that painting, I was like, were they twins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought because of that resemblance, something's going to come up.
Yeah.
Or maybe one person in the entire film would think that he was John or something.
I thought
Right.
the exact same thing because
Nah.
he's back. He's been gone. Yeah. No.
I'll be honest. Right here, I was like, "Oh, this is your son."
Uh-huh.
I was like, I didn't know because
Yeah. Well, it's very formal.
right.
Yeah.
And it did kind of catch me off guard, and I was like, "Oh, because of that."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Cause you know what I mean." It seemed very. It was this a friend, an old friend,
Mhm.
old friend's son, a business partner, is this whatever. But then when he says that, I was like, "Oh, but it it is very weird that he looks. It looks just like
Exactly.
Yes.
And the other thing, I did look it up. There's a 17-year age difference between Claude Rains and Lon Chaney Jr.
Okay.
Oh,
But looking at them, it is kind of difficult to say father and son.
for sure.
It is.
So that probably...
Yeah.
But Sir John places the poker back onto its stand and asks his son to have a seat in a nearby chair. Larry sits solemnly on its arm as Sir John explains that there is developed what amounts to a tradition about the Talbot sons. He says the elder, next in line for succession and so forth, is considered in everything, while the younger frequently resents the position in which he's found and leaves home, just as Larry did. Larry reminds his father that he's here now, which Sir John acknowledges, but suggests that it's a sad commentary on their relationship that it took a hunting accident and his brother's death to bring him back.
I feel like there's a lot of exposition in this conversation where we are catching up years of whatever the hell is going on in the Talbot family.
Mm-hmm. And there is something to be said for a plot line that is not used in this version of the film.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with this, there is a really poetic ending that we could have gotten that we didn't get.
Right.
But Larry rises from his seat, assuring his father that it isn't as bad as it sounds, sharing that he's watched every bit of recent news about his father, and adding that he was very proud to learn that Sir John won the Belden Prize for research. Rather than comment on this, Sir John takes the blame for the predicament of the Talbots, elaborating that the tradition also insists that they be the stiff-necked, undemonstrative type, admitting that this has frequently been carried to a very unhappy extreme. Larry understands this for sure, and Sir John proposes that between them, going forward, there should be no more such reserve. He holds out his hand for his son to shake it, which he promptly does, promising that he'll do everything that he can.
This is when it was really hitting me because I have in my notes, I'm sure that it's just a sign of the time or even like the status or whatever of this family. But are you my dad or my boss?
Yeah,
You know
that's
what I
I'm
mean?
saying. It's confusing.
Like, I feel like if me and my dad are having a conversation and it's like, okay, from this point going forward, like, let, candidness or whatever the hell they're promising each other, not to be so stiff or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Now shake my hand. Like, I'm going to give my dad a hug. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just felt very like a business deal.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it was like it wasn't a close handshake. It was like that when you have to outstretch your arm all the way.
No, stay over there. Give me 6 feet.
And he does also call his father sir.
Yeah.
Which has to be a sign of the times.
Yeah.
But that does kind of lend to this feeing of like, are they business partners?
Yeah.
It's a little disconnected.
And in all fairness, I honestly don't even know if they keep this promise to each other.
No.
No.
They have their fingers crossed behind their backs.
But regardless, Sir John is pleased to hear it, noting that the experience that Larry's gained in the 18 years he's been away should qualify him to be of immeasurable benefit to the estate. But before he can continue, the pair are interrupted by Kendall and another uncredited butler, dividing the weight of a large crate between them as they carry it toward the staircase. Its side clumsily marked glass in large capital letters. Kendall tells Sir John that the shipment has arrived from London, and he assumes that it's a new part for the telescope. With excitement, Sir John instructs his son to follow him and the butlers up to the attic, and as they climb the large staircase past a suit of armor, he tells Larry that it's a conservatory now. We find Larry and Sir John sometime later in the two-tiered glass-walled conservatory, the father scribbling notes in a small study below, while the son tinkers with a large telescope up above. So there are just a couple things that I want to make mention of.
Mm-hmm.
We have a film featuring a werewolf.
Yeah.
We have a telescope in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we never see the full moon.
I literally, when they brought this in,
Yeah.
and he's like, oh, it's an observatory or whatever, I was like, oh, we're looking at the moon in this. We're going to be talking about, oh, there's a full moon coming. Like, how is the moon not a very heavy theme in a way? And I know it starts here.
Right.
And I know that those are probably standards, I mean, obviously that are imposed later on, but watching it modern day, I was very shocked that wasn't a heavy theme in this.
I'm shocked now because I didn't even pay attention to any of that. I don't know why. I was like, oh no, it's a full moon every night.
Yeah.
Honestly, in this village.
Yes.
I personally, I was waiting for it because I'm like, it has to be.
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker for the full moon shot.
Of course.
Right.
The bit of clouds parting and everything.
Yeah.
So waiting for it and then it never happens. They do mention the moon,
Right.
Yeah.
but it's not enough.
No.
Something else, the more that we're talking about it, because I did read in earlier drafts of the film, Larry Talbot was called Larry Gill. And he just came from America to Talbot Castle because he was responsible for installing this telescope for them. He wasn't his son.
This isn't his family.
And so maybe that's why maybe some things are kind of hold over and they added things without taking things out. And so there are things that feel a little cold and businesslike.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that maybe might explain some of it.
Yeah. Okay.
But Larry finishes his work, adding the new part that the butlers gathered, and Sir John crosses past a pair of leather chairs and an expansive bookshelf to climb the steps to the higher level to have a look at the telescope. The camera glides to meet the pair as Sir John takes a seat at a stool to peer through the eyepiece, and his son kneels down at his side in anticipation of his father's verdict. Through the telescope, Sir John adjusts his focus to spy the bustling street just outside of their castle. Large houses line the road on either side as a dark car breezes past and a well-dressed man rides on a bicycle. Sir John commends his son's work, wondering where he learned such precision. As Larry rises to his feet, he shares that he worked for an optical company out in California who did quite a job on the Mount Wilson Observatory. As Sir John continues gazing through the telescope, he asks his son if he's interested in astronomy, but Larry answers that he isn't, more just that he's all right with tools, having done quite a bit of work with astronomical instruments. but he admits that when it comes to theory, he's pretty much an amateur. Sir John offers that all astronomers are amateurs, as when it comes to heaven, there's only one professional.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that was a good line.
But Sir John leaves his son to return to his work, and as soon as he departs, Larry sits where his father once did, eagerly gazing through the telescope. And again, it's clear that Sir John has a lot of experience in astronomy.
Yeah.
He doesn't even talk about the moon.
Yeah.
But through the telescope, Larry sees the bustling town square, townsfolk gathered in conversation, lights hanging over ornate storefronts, cars parked on the road, a horse-drawn carriage resting in front of a spirit shop. But as he arcs the instrument above the square, Larry finds, through the second-floor window of her home, Gwen Conliffe, played by Evelyn Ankers.
So Evelyn Ankers, it looks like she really enjoyed doing these kinds of movies. She did Hold the Ghost in 41. That was an Abbott and Costello movie. The Ghost of Frankenstein in 42. Son of Dracula in 43. The Invisible Man's Revenge in 44.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, still, yeah, it's still in the monster.
I'm shuddering at the thought.
Oh,
Yeah.
He'll get his revenge.
Yeah.
But romantic strings swell in the score as Gwen fluffs her curled locks, her golden earrings in the shape of half moons shimmering as she admires herself in a mirror and adjusts the buttons of her blouse. Larry's smile grows wide behind the telescope, and his view dips down to the floor below Gwen's window to discover a storefront on the street level which advertises Charles Conliffe, antiques bought and sold, rare importations, and authentic pieces. Before we get to the next scene, I did want to highlight the music of this film.
Okay.
There were 3 composers for this film: Charles Previn, Hans J. Salter, and Frank Skinner, and for some reason they're all uncredited.
Huh.
But they had said that they had reused some films from previous Universal projects, but in this film, 90% of the music you hear was composed just for this film.
It's really good.
Yeah. And this romantic music, the stuff at the beginning that was like eerie and ominous, and there's so much stuff that we hear later on that just fits the aesthetic of the film so perfectly.
Yeah.
There was something I forgot to mention at the opening title sequence where we get the cool like Wolfman theme. They had mentioned on a featurette that the composition makes use of the tritone, which is a series of notes that have been used since the Middle Ages that are meant to evoke the concept of evil.
Okay.
Ooh.
And so to hear it, that might be why the opening sounds as menacing as it does.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just fantastic work.
Yeah. The music is so good, in fact, that it almost convinces you that it's not fucking creepy. That he's looking at this woman and grinning and fucking, what building is this? Like, I was like, dude, I'm a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It is honestly very terrifying because when you do see it that way, you are like, he did exactly that. He's gathering intel.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where we find him next.
Yes.
Yeah. Kind of like that kid who lived next door to that sexy vampire who kept...
That's a reference
Yeah.
to this. But sometime later, Larry travels down to stand in front of Conliffe Antiques, gazing through the window at various items that decorate the shelves. He fixes his suit jacket, lifting his head to smile up at the window where he had spotted Gwen, before marching on a mission toward the front door of the shop.
This is not okay.
No.
No.
Larry pushes the door open, a small bell singing his arrival as he removes his hat, making his way past the miscellaneous stock of items to be greeted warmly by Gwen, who stands at the counter asking how she can help him. Larry claims to be looking for a gift, something in earrings. Gwen immediately reaches inside of the glass case, removing a small black display box for Larry to peruse, pointing out a diamond pair, which she assures him are very smart. She then directs his attention to a pair of pearl ones, but Larry isn't so sure about them, noting that what he's actually looking for is something half-moon-shaped with spangles, golden. Gwen apologizes as they don't have anything like that at the moment, but Larry is certain that she does, asking if she remembers on her dressing table up in her room.
Sir?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Okay. First of all, that is a little moon motif.
Right.
I got to give it that. But I feel like, and again, I'm adjusting for the time period. I know this is 41?
Yeah.
What were red flags? What were always red flags were maybe not seen as red flags back then.
Well, this film's black and white.
Yeah. We couldn't tell.
Yeah,
No.
we couldn't tell they were red
It's like,
flags.
is that a green flag?
Yeah.
I
Looks
guess.
Gray
yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
But I can see them using, oh my God, I saw this beautiful woman and I went down to the store or whatever. It's a meet cute. Not to me. I still think it's pretty fucking creepy. But the fact that he's like, no, up there. Like
Yeah.
the fact that you're alluding to you seeing her before you met her, I'm terrified of this man.
Yeah, that's a weird game to use. You know what I mean? I know what you got in your room, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put 'em on. It's like, wait, what? How? Why? When? What the fuck?
It's like, oh, you think this is flirting?
Yeah.
I'm scared.
I think what they're trying to do, and I am not at all defending any of this, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to establish a supernatural element early, because the excuse that he gives for why he knows this. I feel like there is another scene that comes later where Sir John tells his son that he should really get to know the people in town. Maybe that could have been his end
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
instead. But no, it's the creepy window peeping.
Yeah.
Right.
But Gwen is obviously taken aback by what he's mentioned, especially when Larry suggests that she run upstairs and go get them for him. Gwen states that those earrings aren't for sale, and Larry understands, adding that he can't blame Gwen. They look so good on her, after all. Gwen just sighs nervously, setting the display box down and proposing to Larry that maybe her father could help him instead.
Or the police, perhaps.
When she turns from the counter to give her father a call, Larry stops her, assuring her that that won't be necessary. He notes that since he can't have the earrings, and after a quick scan of the nearby inventory, he states that maybe he could buy a cane instead. He reaches into a rack filled with canes, absently inspecting one, as Gwen finally decides to ask him how he knew about the earrings in her room. Larry lies that, in fact, he's a psychic, and every time he sees a beautiful girl, he knows everything about her. He snaps his fingers, noting, just like that. Gwen breezes past this, switching back to salesperson mode and directing Larry's attention to the rack of canes instead. She's like, if I can make a sale, we can just...
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, because good Lord, this
Yeah.
guy's... Does anybody have a hose or something?
Gwen shows off a cane with a solid gold top, which she once again notes is pretty smart. But Larry just eyes her unwaveringly, claiming that he doesn't think that cane will do either. She finds one with a small sculpted head of a dog as a handle, commenting that it would suit him. But Larry declines this as well. He is a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as she sinks this cane back into the rack, another cane catches Larry's eye, and he lifts it up by its long silver handle, joking that it would make an excellent putter and even miming a few shots. But when he gets a better look at it, he realizes that sculpted in the silver is the face of a howling animal. He chuckles at first that it's another dog, but Gwen corrects him. No, that's a wolf.
Okay.
We get a tight shot of the cane in Larry's hand, a 5-pointed star carved into the base of the handle in the wolf's fur. And Larry asks Gwen what these symbols could mean. So I did read that this cane was actually made of vulcanized rubber,
Okay.
but the sculpt on it, you would very easily believe that it was made of silver.
Yeah.
For sure.
It looks fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I read as well that since it was made of vulcanized rubber, it's in a collector's collection currently,
Okay.
and it hasn't deteriorated at all.
That's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
But Gwyn sarcastically reminds Larry of his self-proclaimed psychic abilities, to which he still insists on having. But considering that the cane is only wood and silver and hasn't got blue eyes like Gwyn, his powers are rendered useless.
We're still doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Gwyn just walks back behind the counter, sharing that the cane he's holding will cost him £3. Larry barks, £3? $15 for an old stick? It's like, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm swooning. You can't hit on someone and be fucking cheap,
No.
dude.
Yeah.
You can't do
For this piece of shit?
It's that.
It's great. I busted out laughing.
Yeah. But Gwyn counters that the cane is a very rare piece. It shows not only the wolf, but also a pentagram, which is the sign of the werewolf.
He's like a rare piece of shit.
He lives in a castle.
Yeah.
Just buy the cake.
Yes.
Right, just charge it, man.
Yeah, literally.
Pay double something.
Yeah.
So funny, man.
But Larry has never heard of werewolves or the sign of the werewolf. So Gwyn explains that a werewolf is a human being who at certain times of the year changes into a wolf. Larry, leaning over the counter, asks if she means running around on all fours, biting, snapping, and baying at the moon. Gwyn warns that it can be even worse than that sometimes. But Larry, peering up at her, can only offer jokingly, "What big eyes you have, Grandma." Gwyn steps away from the counter to toss a rag into a drawer, noting that Little Red Riding Hood was a werewolf story, but she says that there have been many others. I know that a lot of these fairy tales have different versions that were the origin or whatever.
Right.
I remember Little Red Riding Hood just being a story that features a wolf.
Yeah.
No, he was a very conniving wolf.
He was.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he was a man ever.
No, I think he just was a wolf.
Yeah.
But Gwyn also says that there's an old poem. Even a man who is pure of heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfsbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Did you hear me, butterfly? No, I'm just kidding.
Miles to go.
I hope y'all like this poem, though.
Oh, yeah. I got to admit, it's cool as hell.
It's really good.
I first heard it because I did not remember it from childhood watching this movie, but there's a song by Rob Zombie called Werewolf Baby. And not like Werewolf Baby. It's like Werewolf, baby with an exclamation point.
Okay.
Werewolf, baby.
It's not about an infant werewolf.
It might be.
But who knows?
We don't know.
But the second verse, or third, I don't know, has this as a big part of it. And I've been singing that song for years, and I hear it here, and I'm like, holy shit.
That's really
Okay.
cool.
The cool thing about it is that this was not based on any kind of folklore at all. This poem was created by the screenwriter.
Okay.
And because of how enmeshed this film is with werewolf mythology,
Yeah.
a lot of people think that the origins of this poem are from like hundreds of years ago.
Oh, and it's just from the film.
Yeah.
Well, but the poem kind of makes it sound like you could just be walking along and it's like, oh, like,
Yeah.
oh God, you know?
Like you don't know that you're a werewolf?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did mention the moon bright, but it just sounds like you're outside. That's why it's there.
Yeah.
Right. It's nighttime.
Yeah.
Right.
But Larry asks about the pentagram, and Gwyn explains that every werewolf is marked with it and sees it in the palm of his next victim's hand. So this as well is a concept that is created by Siadmak, the screenwriter.
Mm-hmm.
And this connection between a star and death is connected completely to his experience fleeing Germany.
Whoa.
okay.
Yeah, I just put that together.
Yeah, it's very deep, and
Yes.
I didn't even connect it until I listened to this talk from a film historian.
Yeah.
And it's so tragic and it's such depth.
Yeah,
Holy
yeah.
shit.
But Larry assures Gwyn that if she's trying to scare him out of here, she isn't getting very far, and instead decides that he'll purchase the cane, unfolding the money to pay her. But as he does, Gwen pleads to know if Larry has ever seen her before, and he cops to it, asking her how she thought he knew about her earrings. Gwen, however, doesn't remember him, so Larry proposes that they should have a little walk together tonight to talk it over. Gwen politely declines Larry's invitation, walking him to the door with their transaction complete, but Larry insists, "See you at 8," which Gwen declines yet again.
This fucking dude!
He's still trying.
Yeah. They exit the shop together, the bell ringing behind them, while on the street out front, a caravan of horse-drawn carriages clop and clatter over the cobblestone. The first carriage is driven by Maleva, played by Maria Uspinskaya, who sits wrapped in a shawl, her long dress hanging just above the wagon's wheels. But behind her, manning the reins of a larger horse and carriage, sits Bela, her son, played by Bela Lugosi.
I was very excited.
Yeah.
We all know Drac.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maria Uspinskaya. She was also in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 43.
Oh, that's awesome.
And in Dodsworth in 36. It does look like Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. She is the same character in this movie, in that movie.
That's cool.
I love that a lot.
Yeah.
Something very, very interesting about her that I learned in a bit of research. Uspinskaya, she hails from Moscow, Russia. And when she lived there, she trained under Stanislavski.
Oh.
Okay.
Then, when she moved to New York City in 1922, she co-founded a drama school called the American Laboratory Theater. And while she was there, we've talked about Lee Strasberg a few times on the show, having trained Marilyn Monroe, Robert De Niro,
Right.
Al Pacino, tons of people. Uspinskaya trained Lee Strasberg.
Holy shit.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just like, it's incredible.
What a badass.
Yeah.
I did also look into it, and she is, I believe, 6 years older than Bela Lugosi, and yet she's playing his mother.
Of course.
Yeah.
And Bela Lugosi, very interestingly, was supposed to co-star in Werewolf of London with Boris Karloff.
Okay.
But I think they both had scheduling conflicts and they couldn't do it. And then for this film, I read in some sources, I can't confirm, that he had campaigned to be the lead of this film, but obviously lost out to Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be a main character with a lot of speaking parts. And they had said on commentary that he only has 7 lines in the entire film.
I believe it. I feel
Yeah.
like we don't see very much of him.
No,
Yeah.
but he has such a presence.
Yeah.
But the pair ride by in front of the antiques shop, Larry seemingly intrigued, and Gwen revealing that they're fortune tellers who pass through town every autumn. Larry, realizing that he hasn't had his fortune told in years, smiles warmly at Gwen, asking, "How about tonight?" Gwen once again firmly declines his proposal, heading back into the shop and closing the door behind her. But Larry raises his cane, locking eyes with her through the window and calling out, "All right, I'll be here at 8," and he leaves.
Please don't. Again, I know that this is the 40s. This is supposed to be endearing, right?
I
Like
guess.
for the audience at the time, or is it like, oh, he really, won't fucking leave her alone or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm mad.
I get it. And I think that if there was a little more flirting, like common, or like both parties flirting, then it would be like, okay, I can see him maybe still like that. I'm going to wait on that walk or whatever. But that she's just like, no.
No.
Dude.
Yeah.
No.
Very clearly.
Yeah.
And you just got here, dude.
Yeah.
Like, calm down. And I think the other thing is through the blocking of the scenes, whenever you see he leans into the counter, she leaves the counter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she does not want to be near him at all. And I did read, very interestingly, that behind the scenes, these two did not like each other at all.
Oh, really?
He, often would try to play pranks on her and just fuck with her, and she was not about it at all.
Yeah.
How annoying.
But back in the conservatory at Talbot Castle, Larry sits in a chair across from Sir John, who stands behind his intricately carved desk, leafing through a large book on top of it. Sir John confirms that the cane does in fact bear the sign of the werewolf, and Larry remarks that it's just an old legend. But Sir John insists that, like all legends, it must have some basis in fact, positing that it might be an ancient explanation of the dual personality in each of us. That was another bit of social commentary that Siodmak was trying to inject into this story, because he said that when he was living in Germany, the people who became Nazis were their neighbors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he was trying to discuss this dual personality of how you could be seemingly at the start a decent person to your neighbors and then become a monster.
Yeah.
But Sir John reaches for a volume of text from his massive bookshelf, and as he approaches his son, he recites a very familiar poem. Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfsbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. As Larry clutches his new cane, he shares with his father that he heard this poem earlier from the girl at the antiques shop. Sir John seems glad to hear that Larry has met Gwen Conliffe, and Larry is overjoyed to learn her name.
Not only have I met her, I've harassed her too.
We have a date tonight, dude.
You're not going to believe this, but...
As Larry rises from his seat to sit at the edge of Sir John's desk, the elder advises his son to not only spend time meeting all the pretty girls in the area, but also the old men and women and the young men, reminding Larry that not only are they nice people, but they're his people, considering he'll be running the estate. Larry assures his father that he does want to know all of them, and Sir John smirks, noting that his son has made a pretty good start. But he pats him on the shoulder, encouraging him to run along to continue his work, and Larry thanks his father as the two men bid each other goodnight.
But even that, what do you mean run along? I'm 35, motherfucker.
Yeah.
What?
He ruffles his hair.
Run along, scamp. It's like, what? I am 8 feet tall.
No shit. He's like, I'm Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Were you Frankenstein?
But around 8 o'clock that evening, as a light fog descends on the town square, Gwen exits the antique shop, clutching a small handbag. A church bell tolls in the distance, echoing over the town, and Gwen peers around the empty street. But we see Larry creep down a small set of stairs out of sight of her, slinking around to meet her as she unknowingly turns to face him.
She looked trepidatious when she came outside. And I don't like that he showed up fucking at all. But if you're going to do it, wait outside and be visible. Like, he waited until she came out and fucking slunk up. Like, I just don't like this guy at all. And then there is a distinct attitude shift in a minute that would frighten me, honestly.
Startled, Gwen appears relieved that it's only Larry, and he asks who else she expected. Gwen responds that she didn't expect anyone, considering she told Larry that she couldn't go out with him tonight. But through her hair, Larry notices that Gwen is wearing the moon-shaped earrings that she knows he's quite fond of. And when she tries to explain it away, Larry just implores her not to make him go alone. After all, he's really afraid of the dark.
Don't make me go alone.
And they got that. Wolfma. But Gwen smiles at Larry as he reveals that he also brought his brand new cane for this momentous occasion. But Gwen then calls out to her friend, who exits the antiques shop and steps into the fog of the night. Ginny Williams, played by Faye Helm, is also keen to have her fortune read tonight, asking to join the pair if Larry doesn't mind. Larry clearly minds, peering down in disappointment at the silver of the cane's handle. He mutters, "Well," and both women burst into laughter, linking arms with Larry as they continue together down the street as a trio.
So Jenny, Faye Helm, She was in Night Monster in 42 and Phantom Lady in 44.
Very cool.
Yeah, the Phantom Lady stood out. I was like,
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I heard she was the titular Phantom Lady.
Oh.
Well, all I know is I do not like the look on that dude's face when somebody joined them.
No.
Yeah.
When I don't even fucking know you and I'm supposed to wander off into the fucking James Wan fog with you arm in arm. Like, anybody would bring their friend and he fucking soured.
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not going to let you kill me later.
Yeah, sorry, Larry.
My bad. But they eventually reach the marsh, where through the fog, Jenny notices a bright bushel of wolfsbane growing beneath the yawning branches of a tall tree. As she plucks a few flowers free from the plant, she recites a poem to Larry. Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfsbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Then why are you picking this right now?
He's like, here, take some.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, it's bloomed.
It's going to
Yeah.
change me. Why are you doing that?
I also feel like everyone knows this poem but you, Larry.
Yeah.
He's like a werewolf.
This is new to me.
Everybody's like, yeah, dude, werewolves.
But then at the same time, everybody seems to have this knowledge of werewolves, but it seems like the most weird concept to even consider as the film goes on.
That's true.
Yeah.
And Larry being gone for so long, I can almost see him being out of the loop, but he is from here.
Yeah.
It's that. That's kind of what I was thinking right now too. Though I do understand he's been gone for some time. But if it's lore or legend or whatever, then you're right. Everybody would know this, and still he would too. He's from here.
And even more with the next line. Because as eeriness abounds in the score and Larry chuckles, he's surprised that Jenny knows this poem too, and Gwen chortles that of course she does. Everyone knows about werewolves.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
Everyone but Larry.
Yeah. It's like, dude, we get werewolves all the time here.
Yeah.
Gone for 18 years. Shit changes, dude.
Yeah, they're like kangaroos.
Yeah. Your attic's a conservatory and we get werewolves. But as the three continue on, we wipe to a small settlement of carriages, and as the trio steps over a long branch to enter it, they spot Bela, who stands beneath the small lights hanging from his caravan. Gwen approaches him closely, announcing that they've come to have their fortunes told, and Jenny wonders if he can really read the future. A pipe clutched in his hand, just beneath the frills of his long-sleeved shirt, Bela declares concretely that he will not disappoint them, and he asks them kindly to step inside. Jenny eagerly asks if she can go first, and Larry and Gwen allow this, Bela leading her to a table that sits inside of a tent. Maleva creeps by the fire at the center of the camp, eyeing the strangers who have joined them tonight, and she disappears after flashing a look of disdain. But at the table, Bela places a deck of cards in front of Jenny, instructing her to cut them. She sets down her gathered wolfsbane to do as told, and in a matter of seconds, Larry has already grown bored of the proceedings. He leans in close to Gwen, assuming that they didn't come here to listen in on Jenny, and Gwen agrees with this assessment, as Larry suggests that maybe if she went for a little walk with him, he could tell her fortune. Gwen mulls it over for a moment before a small smile creeps across her face, and she links arms with Larry, who guides her away from the camp.
Gwen?
Yeah.
Shocking. Larry takes Gwen through the evening haze, clutching his cane in his hand, and Gwen wonders if Larry's skills as a fortune teller is how he knew about her earrings. But Larry finally admits the truth, commenting that a telescope has a mighty sharp eye, adding that it brings the stars so close you feel like you could almost touch them. Gwen is taken aback again, asking, "A telescope?" And Larry confirms this, saying that it can do the same exact thing to people in their rooms if you point it in the right direction.
What the I mean, okay, thank you for being honest, I guess, but where you're doing this and the fact that you're just like, oh yeah, dude, I was just fucking looking at you. But like, this is not, why are you saying this so casually?
Yeah.
I do this all the time.
And it again, how bad does this look? Hey, let's go somewhere separate.
Yes.
Come over here. You know I've been watching you. My telescope sees right in your room.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm dead.
I'm dead.
Yeah,
It's
that's
over. And there's wolfsbane over there.
And the autumn moon is bright?
It's
Yep.
done. It's a wrap.
But thankfully, Gwen responds somewhat offended, in disbelief of Larry. But Larry defends that he was only testing the refractor. He didn't know anything about her. And then, all of a sudden, there she was. Gwen, putting her back to a tree, smiles that from now on she'll be sure to draw the curtains. But Larry hopes that she won't, before bumbling nervously that he just hopes that she won't on account of him.
No, that's exactly why.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. Gwen understands what he means, but as he leans in closer to her, she says that it's only fair to tell him that she's engaged, revealing that she's going to be married very soon. And she realizes in this moment that she shouldn't even be here with him at all. Larry retorts, "Oh, but you are here."
Ew.
He just breezes past that. He does not seem to care at all.
Yeah.
No.
He's like, I'm not engaged.
Yeah. I'm surprised he wasn't like, to give my $15 back.
But back under the tent at the campsite, Bela draws the tarot cards from the deck, methodically laying them out in front of him. Jenny impatiently inquires if Bela can tell her when she's going to be married, but the fortune teller's attention is drawn instead to the wolfsbane resting at the center of the table. He seizes it, throwing it onto the ground before returning his hand to his forehead, collecting himself and slicking his hair back with a firm palm. But as he does this, unbeknownst to Jenny, we see that etched lightly into the flesh of his temple is a pentagram. Worried for her future, Jenny questions what Bela saw in the cards, but returning to himself, Bela politely asks Jenny for her hands. She places them into his with her palms facing upward, as Bela explains that her left hand shows her past, while her right hand will show her future. The campfire licking warmly in the distance, Bela raises his hands to read her right palm, but as he gazes into it, and with the dramatic music cue, the 5-pointed star suddenly appears all in black at the center of Jenny's palm before fading away.
That's not good.
No.
Something they pointed out on commentary, they were like, so Bela knows all of this about himself.
Yeah.
And yet he took her on as a client. So,
I think that later on, because I'm like, he's a trooper, man. He was still out here working. Like, that's hustle culture right there.
but when fear fills Bela's face, Jenny draws her hand back, demanding to know what he saw. But Bela simply shakes his head, stating that he can't tell her anything tonight, and he urges her to come back tomorrow.
I know that Bela is going through a lot right now.
Uh-huh.
A lot of stuff that Jenny she's not privy to.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody was reading my hand and they reacted like that, I would fucking throw up and cry. What did you see?
And why can't you tell me tonight?
Tell me, you're telling me right now. Like,
Yeah.
I will sleep in this chair. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, I want to know.
Yes.
I need to know.
Bela rises abruptly from the table, stumbling over to his caravan as a flustered Jenny worries that he saw something evil. Bela whips around to face her and, trembling, insists that he didn't, but he shouts for her to go, and to go quickly.
Nah, if he started acting like that, I'd leave.
Take it back.
I'll find out on my own.
Jenny shrieks, "Yes, I'm going!" before standing and running past Bela on her way out of the camp. But Bela lowers his eyes to the path that Jenny just took on her way out, only to discover the discarded wolfsbane trampled beneath her feet. Bela buries his face in his hands as the score rises suspensefully. But Maleva peers at her son from her tent across the camp, watching as the black horse hitched to his caravan backs away from him, spooked and whinnying in fear. So very interestingly, and we talk about this all the time on the show, according to Tom Weaver, the film historian, This is one of the earliest examples of animals sensing something supernatural.
Wow.
Okay.
And I think one thing I do want to mention as well about the wolfsbane is it's not established if it is something to protect people from wolves or something that will turn you into a wolf.
Yeah.
Or something, because Bela sees it and he fucking throws it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she gathered it and brought it. So is it almost like a crucifix to a vampire?
Or
maybe
like the rose bush to that stay alive thing,
yeah,
whatever.
exactly like
it is
that.
exactly the same. I did read there were old legends that eating wolfsbane would turn you into a werewolf. So I don't know.
That or diarrhea.
Either way,
It's a gamble.
you'll be howling.
Yeah.
But as Jenny rushes through the thick fog of the forest, the unmistakable howl of a wolf echoes through the trees. As she picks up her pace, we return to Larry and Gwen, who hear the howling as well, but are confused as to what it could be. Gwen notes that she's never heard anything like it in her life, but the howl is soon overtaken by Jenny's pained and fearful shrieks, which cause Larry to snap into action. He urges Gwen to stay where she is as he rushes off alone toward the sound of Jenny's screams. His cane clutched in his hand, Larry stops dead in his tracks when just behind a nearby tree, he discovers Jenny collapsed on the forest floor and a large black wolf tearing ferociously at her flesh. The score grows frenzied as Larry makes his way around, seizing the wolf and punching it in the face. Sorry. That's a lot.
It really looked hilarious.
It's too much. The wolf growls, diving for Larry, who stands wrestling with it as it sinks his teeth into his chest. Larry is able to finally break free from the jaws of the wolf, throwing the animal to the ground. He recovers his dropped cane, and with its stern silver handle, proceeds to beat the wolf to death, the score punctuating his every strike.
I was working on the movie in here, and John Paul's like, "What were you laughing at?" I was like, "You'll see."
That's what I was going to ask. Is this what you're well, I mean, I know now, but
I think the thing is he entered the fight with the cane.
yeah.
So push it away or do something. But to drop the cane completely and punch a wolf
Yeah.
in the face?
It's a wild.
I will be honest though, if werewolves didn't evolve to be a lot stronger, because the modern werewolf is what, like 50 men strong or some shit or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Because this dude's just going toe to toe with the werewolf and beating his ass.
Like it's nothing.
Yeah. I don't think they'd be as scary.
No, and I don't know why it's a straight up dog either.
Yeah.
Considering what we see later.
Right.
I didn't even think about that.
I will say they said on commentary that they tried a ton of different dogs that looked like wolves, but they all failed to act as necessary. And so
They can take.
I know.
Oh, so stop.
Yeah.
It's funny in the context of the film, but not
It's
in real life.
No. But they eventually chose a dog that belonged to one of the guards on set. And Tom Weaver said that the dog actually injured Lon Chaney Jr. during this fight.
Ugh.
I think it broke. He said it broke one of his knuckles or something like that. Not on a punch.
I was like, oh my God.
It bit him.
That's all you got?
No. But he eventually, Lon Chaney Jr., paid to adopt the dog from the guard
Oh, okay.
because they got along so well.
Yeah.
It's happy.
Yeah. It's a happy ending after what we've just witnessed. But Larry stumbles away from the murder scene, collapsing onto the ground in exhaustion. He reaches his feet again, momentarily, clutching the wound at his chest, only to take another fall at the trunk of a tall tree. Through the dark and creeping fog, Gwen finds Larry lying in a heap on the ground, rushing for him and cradling him in her arms. She pleads to know what happened, and before he loses consciousness, Larry can only mutter, "A wolf." Gwen cries for help when she hears a carriage approaching through the fog, the silhouette of which grows clearer as it comes closer, and we see that it's Maleva riding towards Gwen from the camp. She stops, peering down at Gwen and Larry, who rests in her lap. Maleva disembarks her carriage, approaching the pair and asking what happened to Larry. Gwen just trembles that a wolf bit him, and when Maleva doesn't respond, Gwen demands that she do something. The elder woman proposes that she take Larry home, and together they load him onto her cart. But back at Talbot Castle, Sir John enjoys a drink with Captain Montford, both extolling Larry's stature, with Montford lamenting that he should have been in the guards. But Sir John laments that Larry will be much better suited to look after the estate, considering all that he learned while he was away in America. But in the background, Kendall approaches the front door, opening it, only for Larry to stumble inside into his arms with Gwen and Maleva following right behind him. As Sir John and Montford take notice, expressing their concern and rushing over to the front door, we watch from a different angle as for some reason, Larry stumbles through the front door again, with Gwen and Maleva following right behind him.
I put down that was an entrance.
Yeah.
So nice. Gotta do it twice. But Gwen and Kendall help Larry into the foyer as Gwen calls out for Sir John. Full of concern, Kendall asks Larry what happened, and Gwen reveals that he was bitten by a wolf. Montford shouts, "A wolf?" Which is an excellent demeanor for the chief constable.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God.
Skips town.
Right, those things actually are out there.
Holy shit. But Larry stumbles, catching himself on the table in front of the stairs, and Sir John deems it nonsense, as there haven't been wolves around here for years. But in the clatter of the dissonant discussion, Maleva slinks away into the night. Gwen attempts to explain that it all happened in the marsh, and an old woman came to help, but when she turns to address Maleva, she discovers that she's disappeared. Sir John asks, "Who?" And I really thought that it was going to be a big secret that nobody saw Maleva but Larry and Gwen.
Yeah.
But Montford goes, "The old woman."
Yeah.
It was just right there in the doorway.
He's like, oh, she just left.
Yeah.
Well, that's their problem now. Is fuck that. I
Oh,
helped you
yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
Sir John orders Kendall to go find her, and as he rushes off to find Maleva, Montford asks if there was anyone else with them, and Larry weakly mumbles, "Jenny. Someone get Jenny." Suddenly, an uncredited, mustachioed man rushes inside, hat in hand, calling out to Sir John and the captain. His fingers nervously clutching his cap, he stammers that Jenny Williams has been murdered out by the marsh. Montford responds incredulously, demanding to know what's going on here, and Sir John wonders why this man assumes Jenny to have been murdered, but the man explains, "Her throat, sir." Montford rushes off with the man, demanding that he show him to Jenny's body. But before he leaves, he calls out to Sir John that he'll send a Dr. Lloyd to look after Larry. An uncredited butler then helps Gwen and Sir John to carry Larry to his bedroom. But out in the marsh, aided by the low light of lanterns and surrounded by his colleagues, Captain Montford peers down at the mutilated body of Jenny Williams, with Dr. Lloyd, played by Warren William, kneeling at her side for a closer inspection.
So Dr. Lloyd, Warren William, he was in The Lone Wolf Spy Hunt in 39. Then he did The Lone Wolf Meets a Lady in 40.
All right.
Then he did The Lone Wolf Keeps a Date in 40 as well.
With the lady?
I don't know. We'll have to watch. Then he did Secrets of the Lone Wolf in 41. He has a bunch of movies.
Wolf-based.
Yes. There's a theme here.
Mostly, yeah.
But Montford calls out to a Mr. Twiddle, played by Forrester Harvey, ordering him to make a note of the findings of the medical examination. Twiddle responds nervously, "Very well, sir," as he frantically scribbles onto his pad, as Montford states, "Jenny Williams, attacked by some large animal." He confirms this with Dr. Lloyd, who adds that Jenny's jugular was severed with a bite of powerful teeth, the cause of death being an internal hemorrhage. Twiddle groans, admitting that he's a bit squeamish, but Montford implores him to continue his writing. But Frank Andrews, played by Patrick Knowles, holds his small dog on a leash, only to follow it when it picks up the scent of something around the other side of the tree. And there, Frank discovers a second body lying face down, dressed in dark clothing.
So Patrick Knowles, he was also in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman
Wow.
in 43. He also did The Adventures of Robin Hood in 38 and Terror in the Wax Museum in 73.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Oh, yeah.
I will say I don't know why. I mean, I know why because of like censors, of course, but I did not see that wolf wearing like a cape or anything.
No. That makes no sense.
But Frank calls out to Montford and his men to join him, and peering over the body to get a look at his face, Frank recognizes Bela from when he passed through town earlier today. Lloyd inspects Bela's body, determining when asked by Montford that Bela wasn't killed by the same animal, but instead his skull was crushed by heavy blows of a sharp instrument. Twiddle makes a note of it when ordered by Montford, but Lloyd discovers as well that Bela's feet are bare, but otherwise he's fully dressed. But there, at the side of the body, Frank discovers Larry's discarded cane, and after Twiddle incorrectly points out that it has a horse's head for a handle, Frank corrects him. That's a wolf.
Those don't even look the same, man.
No.
But Twiddle excitedly shouts that they found wolf's tracks nearby in the marsh. A wolf! Montford orders Twiddle to make another note. Found on scene of tragedy. Silver-handled stick mounted with a wolf's head. Twiddle shudders, dabbing his sweat as Montford and his men gather to go have a look at the tracks. I can tell Twiddle is meant to be the comic relief.
Yeah.
Because they do have this really repetitive thing that actually is pretty funny where he's like, "Twiddle, make a note." And he's like, "Oh, very well, sir."
Yeah.
It's really funny to me.
Plus his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at Talbot Castle, Larry wakes up in his bed, the morning sunlight pouring in through a window at the other side of his massive bedroom. And he was worried about $15.
Yeah, no
Literally.
shit.
But a knock at the door rouses him out of bed, and just as he pulls his robe over his pajamas, Sir John lets himself inside, followed by Dr. Lloyd and Montford. Sir John suggests that Larry should be in bed, but Larry insists that he feels quite all right. Montford introduces Larry to Lloyd, who admits that his condition frightened them all last night. Larry apologizes, taking a seat on his bed as the three men gather around him. The music rises tensely as Montford raises the cane that they discovered next to Bela's body, asking Larry if it's his. Of course, Larry recognizes it immediately, adding that it's the one that he killed the wolf with. Montford and Lloyd exchange a glance. I don't care how long you've known Paul Montford, you have a lawyer present.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, yeah, I murdered.
Yeah. Well, I beat something to death.
It was dark.
Pretty dark.
A lot of fog.
Yeah. But Sir John reveals that Bela the fortune teller was killed last night, and they found this stick by the body. Larry is confused, declaring that he only saw a wolf. But remembering his tussle with the creature, Larry stands, opening the top of his robe to show Lloyd the wound where the wolf bit him. But when he and Lloyd look down at his chest, they discover that there's nothing there.
I would be like, wait, this is kind of reminding me of a poem that I keep hearing over and over and over again. And that wolf really could take a punch. Like, to a supernatural level, actually. I should have been suspicious then.
Larry returns to his seat puzzled, positing that it must have healed up overnight. Sir John tells his son that Montford would like to ask him some questions about last night, which Larry seems fine with, but Lloyd interrupts, suggesting that they leave Larry alone for a while. Sir John angrily responds, "What's the matter with you?" And he implores Montford to continue with his line of questioning. What the hell?
Yeah.
That's your son.
Yeah.
I have no words.
Yeah.
Larry insists that he continue as well, but warns Montford not to try to make him think that he's killed a man when he knows that he killed a wolf. Lloyd, in an absolutely patronizing manner, puts his hand on Larry's shoulder, remarking, Yes, we're all a little confused."
I mean, this does look really, really bad.
It does.
But he suggests that Larry get some rest. The doctor and the captain exit the room, leaving the cane on a table, but Sir John stays behind with Larry, assuring them that he'll be down in a minute. Once the men leave, Larry immediately rushes for the cane, holding it in his hands to inspect it, as Sir John scolds him, asking what's the matter with him and why he won't just let him handle things. Larry shouts that the men were treating him like he was crazy, and the scene abruptly ends.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. My note is, what just happened? What the fuck was going on?
What were you handling?
Yeah.
Other than putting me in prison?
Yeah, no shit. I mean, at least I got my cane back, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a crime scene weapon, but I
Yeah.
mean,
That's
thanks
true.
for bringing it back.
But it was $15.
It was, yeah. So, yeah.
You
I'm
just be
gonna need
leaving
back.
it in the
Yeah.
woods.
But we crossfade to find Sir John, Montford, and Lloyd in the parlor downstairs. The captain assures Sir John that he isn't accusing Larry of foul play, but states simply that 2 people are dead and he is chief constable.
And it does really, really look like,
Yeah.
like Larry killed Bela.
At least.
Yeah.
What's funny is nobody is even trying to solve Jenny's murder.
No.
Oh, yeah, we're done with that.
Yeah. Like
We
Bela-
found another body, so... And that had the cane right next to it.
True.
So,
Yeah.
like,
This other one's going to be a little more difficult.
we'll get the easy one out of the way.
But Lloyd insists that that's no reason to make a great mystery out of it, noting that Montford is talking like he's a detective in a novel. But Sir John interrupts with the facts as he sees them. A dog or a wolf attacked Jenny Williams, and when she cried for help, Larry and Bela went to her rescue. He claims that it was dark, and in the excitement and confusion, Bela was killed. So you're still painting your son as a killer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Montford wonders about Bela's bare feet, and Lloyd suggests that in the frenzy of Jenny's rescue, he didn't have time to put his shoes on. But when Montford asks about Larry's non-existent wound, Sir John posits that Larry must have imagined being bitten after the wolf jumped at him and tore his coat to shreds. Montford recounts that Sir John himself said that Larry's coat was bloody the night before, insisting that a wound can't heal overnight, and Lloyd responds succinctly, "The patient is mentally disturbed."
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
He assumes that Larry is in a state of shock, and he'd rather Montford not bother him with questions for the time being. Lloyd lights a cigarette as Montford clutches his pipe, and Sir John asserts that policemen are always in such a hurry, as if dead men didn't have all eternity.
That's a great line.
It
Yeah.
is.
But like also there's still a murderer out there.
And dead men also
Presumably.
have families. That
Yeah.
would like to know.
No shit.
Not all of us have eternity. So yeah, we should probably hurry up.
Yeah.
Montford jokes that Lloyd will be declaring him a mental case next, but when Lloyd assures him with a smile that he wouldn't dare, Montford offers in exchange that he won't question Larry again until the doctor sees fit. The men thank each other, and Montford heads for the front door.
So is Lloyd his doctor or his attorney? Because he's like, until, you know what I mean? It was like, we'll question him when you think he's okay.
Yeah, he's
like,
going to bat for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say it is interesting because it seemed as if so he's a medical examiner, but he's also a psychiatrist?
I mean,
He wears many hats.
Okay.
He's a busy man.
Clearly. I will say I did hear that in the original screenplay there was a lot more contemporary psychology put into it.
Okay.
But I do think that it is still pretty interesting how they do try to show that side of things through their conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But foreboding strings abound in the score as a horse-drawn carriage is guided through the town square, a wooden casket its only cargo. 2 uncredited women descend a staircase to watch as it passes and parks near the cemetery gates. Larry stands on the street in front of a store, nervously lighting a cigarette as 2 men climb from their seat on the carriage to tend to the coffin, and the 2 townswomen gasp. It's the fortune teller and the man who killed him.
That's wild.
Yeah.
As the 2 women scurry away in fear, Larry lowers his hat over his eyes, creeping behind the 2 men who carry the casket through the dark of the graveyard. He slinks past gravestones, watching as the men enter an expansive mausoleum, and under the glow of candlelight, rest Bela's casket down on a long table inside. Larry hides behind shrubs as the men exit, and as soon as they do, he makes his way inside, past large stone pillars and over to the coffin. Steeling himself, Larry lifts the lid, peering inside, but before he's able to get a good look at Bela, he hears voices approaching from outside and scatters to a hiding place. Reverend Norman, played by Harry Stubbs, approaches the mausoleum with Mileva, admonishing that they can't bury her son without prayer. Mileva insists that there's nothing to pray for, as Bela has entered a much better world than this, reminding Norman that at least that's what all his ministers say. Norman agrees, but scolds that this is no reason to hold a pagan celebration, citing that he's heard that Mileva and her people are going to come into town dancing and singing and making merry.
I didn't like the way he said the word pagan.
No.
Yeah.
And it's like, let them do however they see fit to honor this life or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just leave them the fuck alone.
It's literally her son.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fuck off.
And how is that bothering anybody?
I don't know. I don't know.
I said you're going to fucking be happy and shit.
Yeah,
It's like,
what the
dude.
Mileva explains that for thousands of years, her people have buried their dead like this, and that she couldn't break the customs if she wanted to. Norman shudders that fighting against superstition is as hard as fighting against Satan himself. He exits the mausoleum flustered, closing the gates behind him. But from behind a stone pillar, Larry watches as Mileva approaches Bela's coffin, lifting the lid to see her son for herself. She recites, "The way you walked was thorny, through no fault of your own. But as the rain enters the soil, the river enters the sea, so tears run to a predestined end." She tells Bela, her son, that his suffering is over, and now he will find peace.
I can see where that Destiny title came from.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But this is very sweet and sad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She creaks the casket lid closed, silently exiting the mausoleum, but Larry creeps around, out of sight of her, to reapproach the casket, only to burst into tears as soon as he reaches it.
Yeah, you really killed that dude.
Yeah. It's an appropriate reaction because I think that anyone would be like, what really did happen?
Yeah.
Like, I know that I punched a wolf in the face, but
Yeah.
all the evidence is pointing to something horrible.
Mhm.
I will say Tom Weaver said that Lon Chaney Jr. asked for this scene with him bursting into tears. Apparently, it was one of the things that he often asked for in a lot of his films. They had said whenever he played Lenny in Of Mice and Men, a lot of other actors had played the character either for laughs or for other reasons, but he always said, "I'm going for tears." And so whenever it came to this, he's trying to, again, show his range.
Okay.
But it does fit the moment perfectly.
Yeah.
But in the parlor inside of the antique shop, Gwen stands at a window conversing with Charles Conliffe, her father, played by J.M. Kerrigan.
J.M. Kerrigan. He was in Gone with the Wind in 39
Wow.
and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in 54.
That's awesome.
Damn.
Yeah.
I heard on commentary that he was also in Werewolf of London,
Oh.
Okay.
so he got to do both.
Yeah.
But Charles assures his daughter that there's nothing that the police could accuse her of and suggests for her to go up to her room and lie down. But Gwen doesn't want to be alone, somberly admitting that as soon as she closes her eyes, she sees Jenny. Gwen crosses the room to take a seat in a chair, her father understanding and accepting her desire not to be alone. Charles exits the parlor and into the antique shop just as the door bursts open, and full of fury walks Mrs. Williams, Jenny's mother, played by Doris Lloyd, flanked by several other uncredited women, all dressed in black. I did hear on commentary, and it was kind of a wild story, but one of the women that is to the side of Mrs. Williams is played by, I believe her name is pronounced Atola Nesmith, and she was a horror host in the 1950s.
Okay.
And I guess she played this character called the Old Woman. And she just kind of like roughed herself up and made her look kind of haggard. And they had hosted a showing of Frankenstein on the broadcast. And for some reason during this showing, she was telling everybody that she was Mae Clark, who played Elizabeth in the film.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just a joke or what, but Mae Clark did not like it at all.
I wouldn't either.
She was like, I'm not an old woman. She fucking sued this lady.
Oh, damn.
For $1 million.
Ooh. Did she win?
She won, but she only got $7,000 in the judgment. But the funny thing is that for her defense, Atola Nesmith showed up and pretended to be the old lady. Like she showed up in character.
Okay.
And I'm like, this lady is awesome.
Right. She sounds pretty fucking great.
But Charles greets the women politely, only to be interrupted by Mrs. Williams, who barks in return. Where is she? She demands to know why Gwen left Ginny all alone at the camp with Bela. And Charles defends his daughter, supposing that Gwen wanted to give Ginny privacy as her fortune was being told. Mrs. Williams calls bullshit, but before she can say anything else, Charles warns that she mustn't talk about his Gwen like this. Mrs. Williams admonishes him to her friends, sarcastically calling him a fine father, and one of the other women chides, "How dare you permit her to walk with other men while she's engaged to Frank Andrews?"
Ooh.
Yeah.
We get a shot of Gwen in her chair, crumbling into tears, and she did leave Jenny alone. But Charles insists that his daughter didn't do anything wrong. Mrs. Williams takes umbrage with this, charging that because of Gwen, her little Jenny was killed. Charles snaps that that's enough, but Mrs. Williams insists that Gwen is to blame, claiming that she always knew that innocent little face was just a... But she and her friends are promptly kicked out of the shop. Mrs. Williams refuses to leave, however, stating firmly that she won't leave until she's given the truth, demanding to know what Gwen was doing while Ginny was being murdered. But just behind the group, Larry enters the shop, just in time for Mrs. Williams to offer exactly what she thinks Gwen was doing. But Larry slams the door, clutching his cane, as he orders her to tell him instead of Charles.
Brandishing the murder stick
Yeah.
is a lot, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone turns to face the large man as he barks, "Come on, speak up. What was it?" The women cower in fear, but before retreating through the door with her friends, Mrs. Williams promises Charles that he and his fine daughter haven't heard the last of this. After they leave, much calmer now, Larry removes his hat, asking Charles, what's gotten into them? And Charles admits that he doesn't know.
Her daughter
I was gonna say
murdered.
she told you.
I couldn't believe
He's
this
like,
shit.
I don't fucking know, dude.
But Larry apologizes for dragging Gwen into all this mess, but he assures Charles that she really wasn't doing anything wrong. Charles believes him as he trusts his daughter implicitly, and Larry says that he hopes that Gwen didn't have to hear any of this, asking if she's here, and once he learns that she is, he requests permission to see her, which Charles grants. Larry heads into the parlor, finding Gwen seated with her back to the antiques shop. He regrets that Gwen heard those women, but she says that you really can't blame them too much, adding, kind of a mess, isn't it? Your best friend's dead.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy these days, dude. What the hell? But Larry shares that he came over to express his sympathies for Ginny's death, and Gwen pleads to know what exactly did happen last night. Larry explains it simply. He saw a wolf attacking Ginny, so he killed it, and in the fight, it bit him. But this morning, there was no sign of the wound, and now they're trying to make him believe that he killed Bela, the fortune teller. Gwen suggests that maybe there wasn't a wolf, and then maybe the story she told him about the werewolf just confused him.
Now you're pissing me off.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about werewolves. I don't know the difference between a wolf and a man.
Yeah.
Fuck off, dude. Whatever this was, it's over.
Everyone's a werewolf. She's like, stop barking at me for a second. I'm just trying to tell you. You asked me. But this does annoy Larry, who wonders why everyone keeps insisting that he's confused. But the bell of the front door opens, and in walks Frank, who is greeted by Charles. He holds his dog's leash and, removing the pipe from his mouth, asks if Gwen is here. Charles says that she is, but she's currently with a visitor. And Frank asks, Larry Talbot? When Charles confirms this, Frank says that that's all right because he wants to see Larry too, and he breezes past the old man and toward the parlor. Frank enters the parlor, where he finds Gwen standing quite close to Larry, and he removes the pipe from his mouth as Gwen introduces the two men, but before they can say anything to each other, Frank's dog begins to bark incessantly at Larry.
Dog knows.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Terminator.
Yeah.
Clearly.
But when Frank's attempts to quiet the dog are unsuccessful, Gwen suggests that she take him outside. As Frank leaves the parlor to do this, Larry sidles up to Gwen, asking, So that's him, huh? Gwen replies that it is, adding that she and Frank grew up together. Larry admits that Frank seems nice enough and asks what he does for a living, only to learn that Frank is the gamekeeper for the Talbot estate. Larry can only offer, oh. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
When Frank returns, Larry holds out his hand to make a proper introduction, but instead of shaking it, Frank merely gazes down in its direction. Larry takes the temperature of the room, realizing that it's a bit too warm, and decides to take off. But before he exits, he assures Frank that he was only here to check on Gwen after everything that's happened. They bid each other goodbye, and as the bell at the front door rings, signaling Larry's departure, Gwen scolds Frank for his rudeness just then. But he apologizes, claiming that he simply couldn't take his eyes off of Larry's walking stick.
I feel like I would not be carrying the stick around.
No.
Yeah, no.
After the accusation.
It's a bit much. It's a choice.
Yeah.
It is. And like, it's a cool stick and everything, but like,
It's also
maybe
a murder
leave it at
weapon.
home for a little bit.
Yeah.
But Frank begs Gwen to be careful, reminding her that though Larry has been away for 18 years, he's still the son of Sir John Talbot. Gwen understands, even if I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thought I was missing something.
But she adds that she's the daughter of Conliffe, who owns the antique shop, asking if that's it. And Frank concurs, but adds that even more, there's something very tragic about Larry, and he's sure that nothing but harm will come to her through him.
But if you feel that way, then, I mean, do something to protect your old lady, man. What do you, like, I don't understand.
But I feel like if I'm this dude, I'd also be like, you should really fucking stay away from that guy, man.
I think he's evil.
Well, you can't just be staring at a stick every time we're around. And
Yeah.
You gotta say something.
Well,
Yeah.
he didn't want to get beat to death.
So don't take your eye
He's
off.
like, fuck it.
Larry's got a reputation.
I'm wondering if what he was trying to say is trying to differentiate the difference in classes.
Okay.
Like saying you're the daughter of an antique shop owner and he is a man who lives in a castle.
Right.
But it's not as if she's pursuing him. He's pursuing her.
Yeah.
And she's also your fiance.
Yeah, it's that. And her response did make it sound that way. But when he said it, that's not how I took it.
Yeah.
No.
So it's like you don't want to be mixed up with them.
Right.
It's kind of how he said it.
But you work for him.
But yeah, I don't get it.
I guess spouses during the week, boyfriend and girlfriends on the weekend.
Got it.
So you got a side piece. You just get the weekends, 2 days.
The 40s were weird.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on.
But that evening, Frank guides Gwen through a very lively crowd gathered at a carnival in celebration of Bela's life. The town is filled with tents and games, and townsfolk and Bela's people mingle surrounding a small stage where musicians play joyously, sawing violins and plodding percussive strings as a dancer, played by Lariana, sways, spins, and swings her skirt. The song reaches its crescendo just as Larry arrives as well, clutching the cane that murdered Bela. So that's cool. It's literally his family's celebration of his life.
Yeah.
And you're like, and this is the stick that killed him.
He's like, I paid fucking $15.
Yeah.
It's getting some FaceTime.
Yeah, no shit.
But the crowd applauds the performance, and Frank stands with Gwen in the front row, asking his fiancée if she's glad that he brought her, and she agrees that she is.
She, again, is taking her tragic loss very, very well.
Yeah.
But as soon as Frank spots Larry across the crowd and points him out, Larry immediately does an about-face and tries to disappear through the townsfolk. But Frank jovially insists that they should say hello to him, which completely contradicts his warning 5 seconds ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he says that he just wants to show Gwen that he isn't jealous. It wasn't about that.
See, that's what I'm saying. I don't get it. I don't.
He's like, I'm like way hotter than Larry anyway. So like, I have nothing to worry about. I'll prove it. Let's go.
He calls out to Larry, inviting him to join them tonight for the fair, but Larry declines, insisting that he was just on his way home. But Frank implores him to join them, assuring him that it'll be fun. The trio approaches a shooting gallery game, Frank requesting 2 guns so that he can play against Larry. Sir John and Montford watch from a distance as Larry raises his gun, firing and nailing several animal targets in a row. Sir John commends him from afar. It's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It's like, that's my boy.
Yeah. Right, good show, chap. Who said that?
So he's always been a great shot.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this?
And also great with the stick. From what we can gather.
He beat that man to death.
He did.
But when a target rises in the shape of a snarling wolf, Larry freezes, an organ oscillating ominously in the score as the camera presses in on it. Larry struggles against tears as Frank mocks, "Go ahead and shoot before it bites you."
Dude, he's literally crying.
Yeah.
It's like, what a baby. You want to be with this baby? Larry fires, missing the shot entirely, and Frank snarks, "Bad luck," before aiming down the sight of his gun and hitting the target with ease.
So clearly he's the one Gwen should be with.
Right.
Right?
It's like, I hit the tiny wolf target.
Duh.
Right, told you couldn't hit it, babe.
Let's go, babe. Frank insists that there's nothing to it, and he urges Larry to try another one. But Larry's had enough, gathering his hat and cane from the game counter and conceding the game to Frank. Sir John watches, his voice dripping with judgment as he comments, "He's unstrung." It's like, calm down.
Yeah, I know.
Was it 2 seconds ago? He was like, that's some good shooting, boy.
Yeah. He's like, oh, he missed. Nope.
He's falling apart.
Before our very eyes. And I am reaping the benefits. Even worse, Sir John attributes this to Larry's long trip from America and also that unfortunate accident the other night. So it's probably more of that.
Yeah.
It's probably more the murder.
No, we're all unstrung after a long trip, dude.
He's got jet lag.
Yeah.
He doesn't normally miss. He's usually great. So I did learn through my research that there is a scene missing here that they did film
Okay.
where Larry Talbot fights a bear.
Stop.
Fucking Jebediah Springs.
Yeah.
And then Pickens the smallest man.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. I think it was to show the animalistic tendencies that are growing inside of him.
We already watched a punch a wolf in the face.
Yeah.
Yes, shouldn't that be enough? But what they did is they had him fight a bear. But the thing is he fought the bear as Larry Talbot.
Okay.
They took 2 days to shoot this scene, and it was like a bear had escaped from the carnival.
Okay.
And so he has to fight it or whatever.
See, I was going to ask, is it like they have a wrestling ring with the trained bear in it?
Right.
And he's supposed to wrestle that?
Like
or-
everybody wants.
Yeah.
Like, step right up.
Yeah.
Fight this bear.
I would love to see this deleted scene.
Me too. They had said, and it was pretty kind of fucked up, honestly, but they said that the bear belonged to a nearby zoo and it was hibernating and they woke it up.
Wait.
Uh-huh.
In my mind, he's fighting somebody like in a bear costume.
Oh, no, it's a bear.
Oh, yeah, no. Come on.
Yeah, it's a real
I'm
life
in
bear.
disbelief.
But he fought this bear and they woke it up from hibernation to film for Universal. But they realized that the scene didn't work at all.
Oh,
because-
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took 2 days for them to shoot it.
Oh my god.
Mostly probably because the bear was tired.
The bear's like,
Yeah.
leave me the fuck alone.
But they said that the thing is that it's not as if he's the Wolfman fighting a bear.
Yeah,
He
that's
looks
true.
like Larry Talbot.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if it's after he loses the shooting match or what, but that's how the scene ended, was him fighting a bear.
He's got to go blow off
Yeah, I
some
was
steam.
going to
Yeah.
say.
It's like fucking Frank. He's just picturing Frank on the face of the bear. But Larry retreats from the fair and finds himself among the parked caravans where he, Gwen, and Jenny were all meant to have their fortunes told. Maleva stands in front of her tent, calling out to Larry that it's been a long time coming. But without looking over, Larry rudely asserts that he isn't here to buy anything. But Maleva assures him that she has nothing to sell. She just expected him to be here sooner.
She's like, I'm just looking for our bear.
But when he turns to face Maleva, Larry immediately recognizes her from the night it all happened, and from the crypt, too. Maleva invites Larry inside of her tent, and as he creeps in backwards, she follows him in, the two gathering together around a table. Maleva states succinctly, "You killed the wolf." Larry is certain that there's no crime in that, but Maleva reveals that the wolf was Bela. Frustrated and taking a seat at the end of the table, Larry asks if she thinks that he doesn't know the difference between a wolf and a man. But Maleva explains that Bela became a wolf and Larry killed him. A werewolf can be killed only with a silver bullet, a silver knife, and gesturing to his cane, Maleva adds, or a stick with a silver handle.
Oh.
All right.
So that is something else that they pointed out. This idea of a wolf being able to be killed by silver, that's an invention of Kurt Siodmak.
Wow.
Okay.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But Larry grows frenzied, calling Maleva insane and insisting that he killed a wolf, a plain, ordinary wolf. Maleva grabs a charm necklace from her table, instructing Larry to take it as it bears the sign of the wolf, the pentagram, and claiming that it can break the evil spell.
So I know we had a lot of questions about the medallion on First Power.
We did.
Right here.
And it got that
Yeah.
from this. On commentary, Tom Weaver was like, why didn't she give that to Bela?
Oh, yeah. She's like, he'll figure it out.
But Larry is fed up. Evil spell, pentagram, wolfsbane. He lurches up from his chair, grumbling that he's sick of the whole thing. As he heads for the tent's opening, Maleva interrupts his exit with a startling revelation. Whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself. And that was another thing that was a little conflicting, because according to what I researched, that is something that happens for the first time in Werewolf of London. But on that featurette, they also attributed this to Siodmak. So I don't know where that originated, but it does kind of take after vampire lore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Larry refuses to hear any more, remarking that Maleva is just wasting her time. But when she asks if the wolf bit him, Larry crumbles, admitting that he did. He returns to face Maleva, who places the charm over his head, imploring him to wear it over his heart always. But Larry, not getting the message, frantically demands to know how much Maleva wants for it. 50? No, he didn't say that. But Maleva just peers up at him, asking, "Do you dare to show me the wound?" When Larry responds in confusion, Maleva repeats her question. "Do you dare to show me the wound?" Larry appears fearful as his fingers reach for the buttons of his shirt, unfastening them. And when he opens it for Maleva to see, she discovers nothing there but his bare chest. In solemn understanding, she whispers to him, "Go now, and heaven help you." So I think that what we see later is what she saw tonight, but we did not get a shot of what she saw tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Outside, Montford watches from behind a tree as Larry bounds out of Maleva's tent. She follows soon after, wrapping her shawl around her as she exits. Montford's like, so he's having sex with Maleva.
Take a note.
Like, very well, sir. But we watch as Maleva approaches another woman, played by Jessie Arnold, whispering into her ear. Worry washes over the woman's face as she whispers into the ear of another woman seated by the campfire. And we watch as word travels throughout the entire carnival and camp, all of Maleva's people moving around hurriedly, scrambling as the crowd of the fair disperses. In his retreat, Larry unexpectedly bumps into Gwen, surprised to see her, having assumed that she already left with Frank. But Gwen shares that they had a quarrel, and so Larry offers to take her home. As the two walk away together, Gwen stops Larry when she notices the charm resting around his neck. He explains that it was given to him by Maleva, and he attempts to shrug it off, but when Gwen recognizes the symbol on the charm as the pentagram, Larry reveals that Maleva told him that he is a werewolf. Gwen gazes up at Larry, darting between his eyes, and hoping that he doesn't actually believe that. But rather than answer this inquiry, Larry removes the charm from his neck and places it onto Gwen, telling her that he wants her to have it because it will protect her.
Why would you not listen?
I don't know.
Yeah, but no. You don't need the charm because earlier you were like, everybody knows about werewolves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're like, what?
Why would you have this?
Yeah.
But strings sing sweetly in the score as Gwen asks who it will protect her from, and Larry answers sincerely, "Me, just in case." Gwen gazes down at the charm necklace, remarking that she never accepts a present without giving something in return. She offers him a penny from her handbag, which, all right.
That's hilarious.
But Larry slowly shakes his head, responding that isn't enough. And instead, he leans in for a kiss. But just as their lips meet, they're interrupted by the clattering of Maleva and her people, breaking down their encampment and gathering their things in a rush.
I'd be like, that's because of me.
Oh, yeah. Larry remarks that they're all leaving. An emotion rising in her voice, Gwen murmurs that she must go too before running away. Larry calls out to her, wounded, but he snags the jacket of a man who passes by, asking him what all the excitement is for. And before returning to his people to help them pack, the man answers fearfully, "There's a werewolf in the camp."
Fuck.
Say, I'll leave. All right.
Message received.
But Larry turns away from the camp, bewildered as he grips the bark of a nearby branch, the camera pressing in on his eyes as his mind dips into hallucinatory memories and premonitions.
And that's when the acid kicked in.
It is funny because they show the camera pressing in and then they have what appears to be a still shot of him.
Yes.
It's like a production still. But lights swirl around him like the passing windows of a train, and he sees the stern stare of Maleva, concern washing over the face of Bela as he reads Jenny's fortune, the wolf target from the shooting gallery game, Jenny sitting fearful at the fortune teller's table, fear finding Gwen certainly as her eyes widen and her mouth falls agape, and his own actions that unfortunate night, the heavy handle of his cane brought down forcefully to bash the werewolf, to bash Bela to death. All of these frightening images enclosed in the white frame of a pentagram as the camera pulls back and reveals Larry still stoically clutching the branch of the tree.
That shot of him swinging that cane was actually pretty unnerving.
Yeah. I really like this little montage.
Yeah, it was unexpected.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But Larry rushes back to Talbot Castle, reaching his bedroom and setting his hat and cane down on the table. He inspects his hands, tearing off his jacket and ripping his shirt as he races over to a mirror in the corner of the room, checking his arms, his chest, and his face. Relief finds him momentarily when he doesn't discover any changes in his physicality, but worry seizes him at once when he realizes he hasn't inspected his lower limbs. He sits down, frantically tearing his shoes off, as well as his socks, and revealing unsightly patches of hair covering the tops of his feet, his ankle, and his shins.
He had fur where there was no fur before.
Wouldn't you think at this point, fuck, maybe the necklace. Maybe I need to put the necklace back on.
Maybe
Yeah.
I should have kept it.
The frenzied score trembles as Larry's fear rises within him, but all he can do is watch as the hair on his legs grows longer and thicker, a dense layer of fur covering every inch of his flesh, and his toes transforming before his eyes into long, dark paws that stretch across the carpeted floor. He tiptoes across the room, his now ill-fitting pants hiked at his calves, as we match cut to find him creeping his way through the foggy marsh, our view of him obstructed by the splintered, shadowy branches. We see him hunched over as he rounds the trunk of a tree, clinging to it with his claws, his fur-covered face animalistic, his teeth sharp and bared as a growl emanates from deep within him, and for the first time, we see the Wolfman in all his glory.
He took that well. You know what I mean?
Considering, yeah, because he just kind of looked at his legs like, damn.
Yeah.
Mhm. And apparently when you're a Wolfman, your clothes turn black too. Which is
That's
pretty cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was trying to look up kind of the process or what this makeup entailed.
Mhm.
Like you had said, I think earlier, it was Jack Pierce,
Yeah.
the MVP really of a lot of these films. But I read that they used obviously fake teeth, prosthetics, and a bunch of yak hair.
Good Lord.
And obviously it's like they would do some of the makeup, film it, go back and do some of the makeup, film it. You know, it's like time lapse kind of. And I read that he was in the chair for application for 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
And then it took another 3 to remove everything.
Damn.
Yeah.
It is great work, I feel.
Yeah.
And I did read that this design was what Jack Pierce wanted for Werewolf of London.
Okay.
But the lead actor who was playing the werewolf, like, he didn't want to spend all the time in the makeup chair.
Mhm.
And so he complained to Carl Laemmle, and Laemmle apparently took the actor's side.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they ended up with this makeup that Rick Baker said he looked more like Elvis than a werewolf. But he finally got to see his dream realized in the Wolfman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did read that he and Lon Chaney Jr. hated each other.
Jack Pierce?
Yeah, because they continue to work with each other in these sequels or these subsequent films. And I don't know if it started here, but I read that they like did not get along at all. That they did not like each other.
He's just pissing everybody.
Yeah.
I did want to say, because I really love this shot of the Wolfman skulking through the trees.
Yeah.
And then it's almost silhouetted completely because he's all in black. He's shadowed.
Yeah.
And the trees as well.
Yeah.
But I did hear that the trees that are in the foreground were actually painted black and they were covered in glycerin so that the lights would shine during the silhouette.
Okay.
And it's just a really cool touch because it does look like this kind of nod to German Expressionism.
Oh.
Okay.
But from the trees, the Wolfman spies Richardson, a gravedigger played by Tom Stevenson, standing amongst the stones in the churchyard. As Richardson lights his pipe, the Wolfman bellows a horrific howl that echoes through the forest, capturing Richardson's attention, and he peers in fearful disbelief at the sight before him through the trees. The Wolfman wastes no time at all, snarling at his victim before charging him and trouncing him to the ground. He howls once more, the sinister sound reaching the townsfolk nearby, waking them from their slumber. An uncredited man calls out to Twiddle, and as the chatter breaks out amongst the uncredited citizenry, Montfort arrives, urging Twiddle to follow him to investigate. I will say there were some moments during this tussle with the aggressiveness of the Wolfman that I was honestly like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's hard to, like, he's really kicking this dude's ass.
Well, it's just like, that removes any doubt that anyone could have had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he's not really too much in control, too. It's just kind of running on instinct.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it also speaks to Lon Chaney Jr.'s performance.
Yeah.
But in the churchyard, Dr. Lloyd reaches the gathered policemen, bidding Montfort good morning, to which Montfort retorts that it could be a better one. Lloyd kneels down, the fog surrounding the men, as he inspects the body of Richardson, discovering that he, as well, has suffered a severed jugular. Montfort recalls that this was the method of murder that took Jenny's life as well, but with the light of his lantern, he discovers something near the body. Animal tracks. Puzzled, he removes the pipe from his mouth to offer a more accurate description to Dr. Lloyd. A wolf. The two men exchange a look of confusion, and we fade to black.
I do want to say something real quick, and I do understand Wolfman.
Uh-huh.
We're seeing these wolf tracks. There's only two.
Oh, right.
So nobody's questioning that.
That is
They're
true.
just like, no, that's a regulation wolf.
Yeah.
All wolves stand up and run when they're after they attack someone.
He was killed by a very talented wolf. But when we fade back in, we find muddy paw prints marring the windowsill of Larry's bedroom, and the camera glides across his carpeted floor, following the prints all the way to the edge of his bed, where his bare feet hang over. Larry awakens in the morning light, returning to himself, and discovering that he's back to his normal human form. But he reaches for his chest, the site of his werewolf bite, but when he tears his shirt open, he discovers a pentagram-shaped mark in his chest.
Well, that's concerning.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like when you have like a bad day or night or something bad happens, and then you wake up in the morning and you're like, is that still reality? Like, did that really happen? That's the moment of like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
I'm a werewolf.
I know. Yeah. Or he's like, man, I got this cool tattoo last night.
Fuck, it went away.
But the music rises tensely as Larry's eyes roam around in his head, piecing together the events of his evening. But when he reaches his feet, he discovers the muddy prints that he left behind when he returned home, and he quickly rushes to wipe them all away, feverishly destroying the evidence on the floor. But once he approaches the windowsill and scrubs it clean with his sleeve, Larry notices Montford just outside of his window, smoke billowing from his pipe as he marches toward the entrance. Larry cowers away from the window as not to be seen by the chief constable. But sometime later, cleaned up and dressed sharply in a suit, Larry descends the staircase to find Sir John waiting for him in the parlor, noting that his son is up quite early. Larry explains that he heard people in the corridor and wonders if there's something wrong. Sir John reveals that Richardson, the gravedigger, was killed last night, and that the police discovered animal tracks leading up to the house, tracks of a wolf.
What? That's crazy. And like, what even is a wolf? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was just asking yesterday, remember?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not something I've ever heard of, or like nobody's written poems about it or whatever. Like, what the fuck even is that? We should probably just go to bed.
Or skip town.
Yeah. I gotta go.
Larry turns away from his father, his eyes shifty as he asks worriedly, "Where do you suppose a wolf came from?" Sir John posits that it might have escaped from a circus or a zoo. He's like that bear you fought last night.
There's animals all over the place, dude.
But Larry, totally nonchalant and apropos of nothing, asks his father, "So what's this story about a man turning into a wolf?"
He's like, we always talk about the Telltale characters where it's like they have no poker face at all.
Mhm.
I'd be like, what is going on? Like, you can tell he's carrying something.
Oh, yeah.
Sir John understands his son to be talking about the werewolf, an old legend. He claims that you can find something like it in the folklore of nearly every nation, explaining that the scientific name is lycanthropia, and he says that it's a variety of schizophrenia. Larry insists that it's all Greek to him, and Sir John concurs that it is Greek, a technical expression for something very simple, the good and evil in every man's soul, and he says in this case, the evil takes the form of an animal. I thought the line about the Greek was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But Larry paces nervously through the entryway of the house, asserting that he can figure out almost anything if you give him an electric current and tubes and wires. But with his voice rising in emotion and volume, he adds, "Something I can hold in my hands, but these things you can't even touch." Concerned, Sir John asks his son what's the matter with him. But Larry returns to himself, much calmer as he inquires if his father believes in these stories. Sir John offers that to some people, life is very simple. They decide that this is good and that is bad, this is wrong and that is right. There's no right and wrong, no good and bad, no shadings and grays, all black and white. Larry recognizes this mindset in Paul Montford, which Sir John concurs, but he says that other people find that good, bad, right, and wrong are many-sided, complex things, and they try to see every side. But the more they see, the less sure they are. He repeats what his son has asked him, if he believes that a man can become a wolf. And he states that if Larry is asking if a man can take on the physical characteristics of an animal, then no, it's far too fantastic. However, he does believe that anything can happen to a man in his own mind. But as the church bell tolls outside, Kendall appears out of nowhere, handing the elder Talbot his hat as he declares to his son that belief in the hereafter is a very healthy counterbalance to all conflicting doubts that man is plagued with. He implores Larry to join him for church, and Larry snags his own hat from Kendall, following his father out of the house.
So was this like a Morpheus, like, is that air you think you're breathing? It's like,
I mean, kind of.
what the fuck was happening?
I don't know. I think that he's trying to very politely tell his son that he thinks he's crazy.
Yeah.
But he's really, I mean, I don't know why he's like in Montford. He's fucking, his mindset is shit.
Yeah.
But I think that that's what he's attempting to do. I don't think that it really jives with what he said earlier whenever they were trying to turn over a new leaf with each other.
Yeah.
He's clearly wanting to know about the werewolf because he thinks that he is one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clearly.
Mm-hmm.
But townsfolk gather outside of the church, the bells ringing loudly over their chatter, and some uncredited folks gather on the steps, lamenting the loss of Richardson's life, and noting the irony of the many graves he dug, because now they're digging one for him.
God damn.
Yeah.
One well-dressed woman admits that she doesn't even open her door anymore for fear of that beast. But Mrs. Williams stands by, spitting these words back at the woman. That beast, asking if anyone has ever even seen it, and expressing her doubts that it even exists. She notes that it's quite strange that there weren't any murders in town before Larry Talbot arrived.
I mean, that is the timeline for sure, but Bela was out there killing on his own.
He was.
Yeah.
Which we never, they just arrived in town.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Oh, okay.
But the man who discovered Ginny's body that fateful night urges Mrs. Williams to hold her tongue, reminding her that what she's saying is slander. Mrs. Williams states sternly that she knows what she knows and says that they all should have seen the way that Larry looked at her during their encounter in the antiques shop, like a wild animal with murder in his eyes.
He was a little threatening.
He was.
He was, but most of the time he looks like he wants to cry or like he's worried or he's very sad.
Yeah, but he burst in there. He's like, what the fuck is going on?
With the walking stick.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
And he frightened all of them, clearly.
Yeah.
But she's promptly shushed when the Talbots arrive for church in the back of their chauffeured automobile. The father and son climb out, ascending the steps to meet Gwen and her father as the crowd funnels into the open door of the church. The Conlifes greet the Talbots, and Gwen asks Larry how he's feeling, but he just looks away, clearly distracted, muttering an absent, "Fine, thank you." But Gwen's eyes stay fixed on him as Charles ushers his daughter away, following the crowd inside the church, with Sir John joining them and Larry bringing up the rear. So something I learned on commentary that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
This set was apparently built for The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1923.
Oh, shit.
Which was a film that starred Lon Chaney Sr.
Oh, wow.
So getting to use it.
Yeah.
But we enter the nave of the church, organ music accompanying the congregants as they find their seats among the pews, the hymn echoing through the towering structure, the shadow of the Gothic cupolas cast against the far wall above the altar. But as everyone is seated, the camera glides through the aisle, each row of the congregants turning to face Larry, who stands alone at the entrance. Unable to bring himself to join the others, Larry makes a hasty retreat from the church.
Yeah, I'll just leave. I didn't even know that guy before I killed him. I mean, oh no.
But back at the Talbot Castle, Montford sits by the fireplace with Sir John, Lloyd, and Frank, holding a cast of the animal tracks that they found at Richardson's crime scene. He suggests that they should send it to Scotland Yard, but Sir John assumes that they'll only laugh at him, as it's clear that the tracks were made by a wolf.
A two-legged wolf.
Yeah. Frank guesses that the wolf is still out in the woods somewhere and suggests that they set up traps to catch him. But Lloyd surmises that they have to do something before the town becomes completely hysterical. Montford agrees, aware of the muttering of werewolves that have been sweeping the town. But suddenly, from the front entrance, Larry enters the room, Sir John inviting him to the discussion of the wolf that seems to be roaming the countryside. Frank wonders about the size of the wolf, considering that Larry saw him, and asks how large he was. But Larry declares certainly, it isn't a wolf, it's a werewolf. Lloyd leans forward in disbelief, and Frank repeats in startled surprise, werewolf? Montford, who now stands by the fire, sarcastically suggests that maybe Larry is right, joking that it would make a fine addition to any collection of animals, and imagines having a stuffed werewolf on the wall. Larry takes an aggressive step toward Montford, but is stopped by the gentle hand of his father.
Yeah.
What was he going to do?
It's like, I already beat one man to death. But even Lloyd recommends for Montford not to joke about such things. Sensing some level of understanding, Larry sits down on the coffee table, leaning in close to the doctor, and asking him if he believes in werewolves. But Lloyd gives an answer similar to the one that Larry heard from his father earlier today, that Lloyd believes a man can become lost in the maze of his mind and imagine that he's anything. He says that science has found many examples of the mind's power over the body, citing examples of the cases of stigmata appearing in the skin by zealots. Sir John calls it self-hypnotism. But Larry wonders if a man isn't even interested in such things, how could he hypnotize himself with it? Lloyd posits that it could be a product of mental suggestion, or perhaps a mass hypnotism influenced by the people around him. But Sir John puts a stop to this discussion, admonishing Lloyd for letting his science run away with his common sense. And Frank asks Lloyd if he's ever met a werewolf, and Lloyd hilariously responds, "Not that I know of."
I could be talking to one right now. I don't know.
But Larry, brimming with worry, asks if these kinds of sick people can be cured. Montfort expresses his doubts, proclaiming an asylum to be the best place for them, but Lloyd declares that any disease of the mind can be cured with the cooperation of the patient. Frank, however, leans into a more pragmatic approach and allows the men to figure things out scientifically while he goes out to set a few traps. Montfort offers his help, following Frank toward the door, but Larry clutches the hand of the good doctor, begging to talk to him for a moment, only for Lloyd to suggest they postpone any conversation, as for now, he thinks Larry should get some rest, and at his father's insistence, Larry exits for his bedroom.
The doctor really comes in for Larry when he needs him.
He does.
Yeah.
Like, no, he's got to rest.
Honestly, part of me was wondering, like, they come into town, Bela and his mother and everyone, every autumn, is what Gwen said. The way that Lloyd is, I thought that maybe he was the wolf that bit Bela.
Oh.
Okay.
And I thought that's what we were leading towards.
Yeah.
Because he's like, you need to get some rest. He's like, I know.
Yeah.
It's really tiring at first. I mean,
what?
you must be tired from your trip.
But with Larry out of the room, Lloyd admits that it's Sir John that he really wants to speak to. But before he can, Sir John snaps at Lloyd's mention of mass hypnotism as an explanation for it all. Lloyd, however, levels with the elder Talbot, suggesting that his son is a very sick man, claiming that Larry has received a shock that triggered definite psychic maladjustment and that he should be sent out of the village. Sir John doesn't want to hear this, admonishing Lloyd for speaking like a witch doctor, certain that the best place for Larry with his illness is his own home, which provides him the opportunity to prove his innocence. Lloyd chides, "Does the prestige of your family name mean more to you than your son's health?" Sir John scoffs at this nonsense, repeating that the only true way for Larry to become cured is to stay here and fight his way out of this. Lloyd comments that shock therapy would be too strong for Larry in his current state. I was like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Who said that?
Yeah.
But Sir John commands Lloyd to listen closely, stating that 5 generations of Talbots haven't been affected by this village and that his son stays here.
So the family name is more important.
Yes.
Got it.
And I'm sorry, but not being affected by this village, doesn't that make it sound like they've been about werewolves for centuries?
Yeah.
But Lloyd relents, proposing that they can just see how Larry feels in the morning before making his exit. But out in the foggy marsh, Wykes and Philip, played by Harry Cording and Ernie Stanton, rifle through leaves on the ground, covering the traps that they've set for what they believe to be a wolf. A job well done, the men reconvene with Montfort and Frank, who are certain that these traps should be able to ensnare the creature. They collect their materials and place them into the back of a carriage, but we fade to the darkness of the evening, a wolf's piercing howl echoing through the night. Through the haze of fog, we find the wolfman out on his signature tiptoed stroll through the trees. But in his haste and inattention, a metal trap snaps, capturing his paw and clattering him to the ground. He writhes in sharp pain, growling and groaning as he rolls against the leaves and the log of a fallen tree. And I think he passes out.
Yeah.
Dude.
That fucking bear trap took him out like a chokehold. Like for
It was really funny to me because, again, when we think of wolfmen, it is like a really powerful being.
Yeah.
You think he'd just tear it off, but he's like, oh my God.
Damn it, dude.
But a group of men with rifles slung over their shoulders, led by Captain Montford, patrol the area, Wykes lamenting that their dogs have lost the trail. Montford suggests that he take Phillips to search around the marsh, and the men follow his orders, with Montford continuing onward with Frank in another direction. But it isn't Montford and his men who find the Wolfman. It's Mileva, who arrives through the fog in her horse-drawn carriage, its lantern a bright glow in the haze of night. She descends from her seat to kneel at the Wolfman's side, reciting the words that she spoke to Bela as he lay in his casket. The way you walk is thorny through no fault of your own, but as the rain enters the soil, the river enters the sea, so tears run to a predestined end. We watch as the Wolfman's captured leg slowly sheds its fur, and through the billowing fog gradually becomes the leg of a man once again. Mileva whispers, "Find peace for a moment, my son." She peers down at Larry, who awakens, wiping the sweat from his face. He asks Mileva what she's doing here, and she insists that she came to help him. He wonders where he even is and what happened, but they're interrupted by the approaching barks of dogs on their trail. Mileva attempts to release Larry from the trap, but is unable to, so Larry frantically tries it himself as he glances around fearfully at the party of hunters in the distance, searching for him. Once Larry is free, he tries to make a break for it, only to run right into Phillips and Wykes, who spot his silhouette in the distance. They call out for him, ordering him to turn around and come closer, and Larry does as told, but the men recognize him as Master Larry, confused to see him outside in the woods. When asked what he's doing out here, Larry lies that he's doing the same thing they are, hunting, and he promptly runs away.
I'm just hunting in my bare injured feet with no gun or light, and him taking off was fucking hilarious.
No further questions.
Yeah, you could not look more suspicious.
But Montford joins the men after Larry is gone, having overheard their conversation, and he's surprised to learn that it was Larry that the men were talking to. When Montford reconvenes with Frank, to great puzzlement, he reveals that the men just spotted Larry Talbot. But through the blur of street lamps, Larry makes his way through town and over to Conliffe Antiques, where he tosses rocks up at Gwen's window, rousing her from her sleep. She switches on the lamp at her side table, and in her robe opens her window to find a distraught and disheveled Larry standing in the dark.
Can we leave her alone?
Yeah.
No,
Please?
apparently not. She rushes for the front entrance, letting Larry inside, and he closes the door behind him, revealing to Gwen that he's going away. Gwen doesn't understand, but Larry insists that he can't stay here any longer. She begs to go with him, suggesting that she could fetch a few things and be back in just a moment, but Larry refuses, declaring that he must go alone. Gwen returns to Larry, clutching his shirt and promising that she could help him, but Larry laments that Gwen wouldn't want to run away with a murderer. As she clutches his shoulders, Gwen emphatically reiterates Larry's innocence, but unable to meet her tearful gaze, Larry looks off, quavering, "I killed Bela. I killed Richardson," and he fears that if he stays around much longer, there's no telling who could be next. A dreadful thought finds Larry as he slowly turns to face Gwen, realizing that his next victim might even be. But Gwen stops him, reminding him that she still has his charm necklace that he gave her, but this doesn't quell Larry's fear.
I'm actually going to need that back.
Yeah. Yes.
Things are getting pretty dicey, dude.
The
Yeah.
circumstances have changed.
But the score rises tensely as Gwen reaches a comforting hand to Larry's face. But there, for a fleeting moment in her palm, appears the unmistakable mark of the werewolf, the pentagram. Startled, Larry pulls himself away from Gwen's grasp as he pleads to know what's wrong. He trembles. Your hand. But Gwen doesn't see anything there. Just then, Charles descends the staircase, surprised to see Larry standing there and offering a confused, "Mr. Talbot?" Gwen declares to her father that she's leaving with Larry, but a defeated Larry cries out that it's no use and rushes out of the antiques shop and into the night while Charles consoles his daughter. So the quarrel with Frank, I guess, was really bad.
Yeah. Oh, she's right. She's done.
Yeah. That was the real reason she wanted to run away. She's like, you're not a murderer as long as you take care of. She's like, wait, whoa.
I didn't
What
see
the
anything.
hell? Yeah. The wolf bit Frank's throat out. But later, at the Talbot estate, Sir John discovers Larry standing at the front door, dressed in a dark suit. He asks his son if he's going out, but Larry approaches his father at the bottom of the stairs with worried steps, declaring that he has to get away from here. He reveals that Bela the fortune teller was a werewolf and that he killed him with that cane, but he was bitten. He tears his shirt open to show Sir John the mark of the werewolf on his chest, but his father merely comments, "That scar could be made by most any animal." What fucking animal has the star-shaped mouth, dude?
Yeah, are you serious?
That's wild.
Most any of them. I was a little surprised that he was coming clean to his dad.
Me too.
Yeah, at least he knows he's the problem. Like, he knows now.
Yeah.
But Larry states that that may be true, but it's the sign of the werewolf. He shares that they say that the werewolf can see this mark in the palm of the hand of his next victim. Sir John finds this hard to believe, but Larry confesses that he saw it tonight in Gwen's hand. His father grumbles, wondering what he could possibly say to help Larry out of this mental quagmire that he's found himself in. This only upsets Larry, distressed that his father still thinks him to be insane. But the men's conversation is interrupted by the barking of dogs just outside the house, Sir John noting that it's Paul Montfort and his men. He shares that they caught nothing in the traps, so now they plan to hunt the wolf. Larry, full of fear, runs up the stairs, bellowing, "They're out hunting for me!"
Yes.
That's exactly right. But Sir John shouts for his son to stop it, telling him that he can't just run away, a sentiment that Larry remembers Mileva sharing with him as well. Sir John climbs the stairs with his son, supposing that Mileva is to blame for all of it, and suggesting that she's filling his head with gibberish of werewolves and pentagrams. He reminds his son that he isn't a child, he's a grown man who's foolish to believe in superstitions. But Larry cites the scar on his chest and the footprints in his room, and the fact that he was caught in a trap tonight.
Maybe we lead with that.
Yeah.
He says that he has no idea how he even got there, but Mileva helped him out of it, and now Montfort and his men are hunting for him. Sir John demands his son's attention, reminding him, "You're Lawrence Talbot. This is Talbot Castle." He asks if Larry truly believes that those men can come in and take him out, but Larry doesn't, insisting that he'll go out to them himself. He cries that he can't help himself. But Sir John proposes that he can make it to where he can't go out to them. And we promptly cut to Larry's bedroom, where Sir John has tied his son to a chair, straps at his torso and his wrists.
Classic move.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sir John adds that he'll bolt the door, and with the windows locked, Larry won't be able to get out, and he'll finally see that this evil thing that he's conjured up is only in his mind. But just then, Kendall calls out to Sir John from the floor below that Montfort and his men are here to see him and Larry. Sir John calls back that he's on his way, to the dismay of Larry, who assumed his father would stay with him through the night. But Sir John states that he has to go, as these people have a problem and Larry must make his own fight, but he promises that they'll settle it all tonight, which is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Before Sir John makes his exit, Larry urges his father to take the cane with him. Sir John doesn't understand, but shrouded in shadows, Larry begs his father once more to just take it. Sir John relents, snagging it from the table as he makes his way to the bedroom door. But sometime later, Montfort and his men are perched in a hunting stand in the woods, ready to encounter the wolf. Frank loads his rifle, but Lloyd notices Sir John approaching them through the fog. I don't know how big this town is, but I don't understand why Dr. Lloyd is out here hunting the wolf as well.
Yeah.
It's all hands on deck right now.
But Lloyd crouches down near the ladder to check in with Sir John, asking if he gave Larry the sleeping pill. Sir John, in fact, did not, to the disappointment of Lloyd, who wanted Larry to sleep through all of this. Sir John, however, would rather his son be cured, and if he's awake through it all, he'll have conclusive proof that it was all in his mind. He reveals that he strapped Larry to a chair and turned him toward the window so that he would see something of the hunt. Lloyd just responds that he hopes Sir John won't be sorry before he's called back to his perch by Montfort. Sir John continues through the evening fog, clutching his son's cane, and eventually encounters Mileva, who sits in her carriage. She calls out to him, asking if he's not frightened, and Sir John doesn't understand, but Mileva answers what he should be frightened of: the night. Sir John is over it, stating simply that she startled him. Mileva tells him not to be startled, as he holds the silver cane for protection. He approaches her, demanding to know who she is, but he finally recognizes her as the woman that's been filling his son's mind with nonsense, preying on his gullibility with witches' tales. Mileva asks, "But you fixed him, didn't you, Sir John? You don't believe in the witches' tales, do you?" Sir John admits that he doesn't, not even for a minute, but Mileva asks where he's going then, wondering why he isn't in the hunting stand with the others, and instead is hurrying back to the castle.
Yeah.
She asks if he had a moment's doubt and was heading to make sure that Larry was all right. Sir John states simply that he was going to be with his son. But the pair are interrupted by the sounds of gunfire in the distance, and when he breaks away and rushes toward the sound, Mileva calls out, "Hurry, Sir John, hurry." I feel like she's being a little antagonistic.
Yes!
And I don't know where this is coming from, because this is her first encounter with Sir John.
Yeah.
But he did go out there, and he was supposed to meet her there. You know what I mean? Like he said he was startled, but it was like you really weren't.
But it's a frenzy in the hunting stand, Montfort leading his men by torchlight through the fog, the men certain that they hit a wolf dead on, but Lloyd reminding them, "Have you forgotten? It takes a silver bullet to kill a werewolf." I will say I did learn on commentary that the original ending of this film was different from the one that we're about to see.
Okay.
And part of it was Larry kind of taking this to heart, this idea of a silver bullet. And so he melts down some silver and he makes a bullet out of it and he gives it to Frank.
Oh.
And he tells him, if you see anything in the woods or you see anything happening to Gwen, use this to kill whatever is doing it.
Okay.
And so it does end that way with Frank shooting the wolf that attacks Gwen. It turns out to be Larry, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about earlier with this poetic kind of circle of Larry's brother John dying in a hunting accident.
Right.
And also it would, I think, work better for Frank to be the one to do it after everything that's happened.
Yeah.
But let's...
We get something different.
Yeah. But we find the Wolfman skulking in the darkness, crouched behind a tree near Mileva, where through the night, Gwen rushes to find her.
I was like, oh, he's out again.
Yeah.
He just broke through those straps.
We don't even see it.
Gwen asks Maleva if she's seen Larry, but she warns Gwen not to go through the woods, telling her that the hunt is on. But Gwen insists that she just wants to help Larry. Maleva instead suggests that she come with her, but Gwen refuses her request, and Maleva declares, "Come with me, or he will find you." Gwen just scoffs, rushing away from the old woman and deeper into the foggy marsh alone.
The old woman who has known everything that's going on.
Yep.
Tried to give you wisdom and guidance. Yeah, fuck her. Let's do our own thing.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand too, is why does nobody listening? Why are you not paying attention? She doesn't seem like she's coming over here being all menacing or whatever.
No.
She's
No.
like, hey, maybe a little too light about it. You know what
Maybe.
I mean?
Uh-huh.
Oh, there's a werewolf.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But it really
She's like,
is.
we're used to this.
Yeah.
Even giving Larry the necklace.
Yeah.
Wear this always on your heart. The first thing that he does when he sees Gwen, he's like, hey, I got this. You can have it.
He's
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, like, so I don't know. But it's kind of a horror movie staple of not listening to the experts.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
But the Wolfman spies Gwen, his silhouette creeping through the night after her, never falling far behind as the music grows dramatically. The men continue their hunt by torchlight, but in a clearing, the Wolfman finally makes his presence known to Gwen, stalking towards her and letting loose a ferocious growl. Gwen screams as he swoops upon her, the hunters hearing her cries in the distance, but from the darkness leaps Sir John, wielding Larry's silver cane. The Wolfman drops Gwen, and instead wrestles with the elder Talbot, who whacks him repeatedly with the silver handle of the cane before the two tumble to the floor. Sir John gains the upper hand, continuing his clubbing of the creature, punctuated by pulsing strings in the score, until the Wolfman lies lifeless on the ground. That might also be why they took out the whole fighting a bear thing. If you can beat a bear but not your father.
Yeah, no.
If you can beat a bear in your human form.
That's true.
But again, he is Sir John, so he's a knight. Maybe.
Ah.
I mean,
True. He's got those night powers.
Yeah.
Mm.
But this was a cool parallel to how this kind of all started for Larry.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to interrupt, but the score is going overtime.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But through the trees, Maleva arrives in her carriage, descending to approach the creature as Sir John stands by, catching his breath. She gazes down at the Wolfman, reciting, "The way you walked was thorny, through no fault of your own. But as the rain enters the soil, the river enters the sea, so tears run to a predestined end." She tells him, "Your suffering is over. Now you will have peace for all eternity." Through her prayer, we return to the Wolfman, his fur growing thinner and the wildness of his features withering away to that of Larry, lying supine on the forest floor in the still sleep of death. Sir John can't believe his eyes, and as Maleva silently returns to her cart, he approaches Larry's body, looking down at the silver wolf's head cane and placing a gentle hand on his son's forehead. Montfort and his men finally arrive on the scene, Frank rushing to check on Gwen, but as the men surround Sir John and Larry, peering down at them through the light of their torches, Montfort shares his theory. The wolf attacked Gwen, and Larry came to her rescue. He gives his sincerest sympathies to Sir John, but Gwen, knowing what she saw and experienced tonight, can only mutter a mournful, "Larry," before she crumbles into tears, burying her face into Frank's shoulder. And as is standard with Universal Horror Pictures, the film abruptly ends. So, what did you guys think of The Wolfman?
So yeah, I mean, this, it wasn't too bad. I'll be honest. This wasn't my favorite Universal horror movie. I do like a lot of the stuff. It does work as a tiny, you know what I mean? Because they are short, as a movie. But I think it is just the forced, or even just trying to have the love story there, or whatever was going on there with them.
Right.
Nobody listening to each other. You know what I mean? There's warnings, there's whatever. It was really just kind of like, all right. Oh, okay. Huh. That's interesting. You know what I mean? It didn't have that same, I think, punch that the other ones have had so far.
You know what, honestly, I feel like would have made the love story work?
Mm-hmm.
It's been established that Larry grew up in this town and moved away.
Yeah.
Why didn't he know Gwen before?
Okay, yeah.
And
there
now
you go.
there's this conflict of I moved on and I'm engaged, but my first love is back. And
Yeah.
That's
that
much,
would have worked a lot better.
Yeah.
it's much more interesting, and it makes more sense because she says that she and Frank grew up together.
Yeah.
You all grew up here.
So
Yeah.
let's just make him a fucking creep that's looking in the window. It's like,
Sure.
yeah.
And that too, that's not cool. He is doing that whatever way they want to try to 1941 it. But it is just like, come on, dude. You know what I mean? You're peeping in this lady's window, then you use it to your advantage to try to whatever, which was really gross, and then it didn't work anyway because she told you no. But
Yeah.
you kept pushing yourself on her until she was like, God damn, dude. It was really strange. I know, again, this is 1941, but it is still weird.
Yeah.
And we never see this telescope again.
No, not at all. No.
That's what it was for.
Yeah.
Not for the moon.
No, yeah.
No, I agree. I think that even talking about it and having some laughs, it is still probably my least favorite of the ones that we've covered. Not that it's bad. I mean, I think that all of these have a charm. There is something fun about all of them. But yeah, I think that this is kind of bottom tier for me of the ones that we've talked about. It's just missing something. And Lon Chaney Jr. does a great job. It's not him. I think that it's the character of Larry that was written. I think that there are these moments of vulnerability where he is emotionally overcome. And if we had established him as maybe a more likable character to begin with, that would have more of an impact. If this beginning of whatever the fuck they were trying to make fetch happen between him and Gwen, if it was that, this dilemma of, oh, I've grown up, I've moved on, but he's back. Yeah. This throws everything. You know what I mean? Like, if it just would make it more endearing for both of them, especially him. Just the way that the story is presented does not really work for me.
I think even in that rewrite, you could still have him messing around with the telescope and being like, is that Gwen Conley?
Yeah.
And you can still have it, but the way that they do it here, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's just, you talked about like revisions and stuff still being left in there. You feel that. This return of this man to his family, I guess, to take, his rightful place as heir. But we never really touch on that.
No.
This is an observatory now, but we never really touch on that. The Talbots have always survived this village, but we've never really touched on that. Everybody knows what a werewolf is, but suddenly nobody knows what a werewolf is. It's just like, how many stories are we telling here? And we're just supposed to roll with the punches. Like, he punched that werewolf in the face. But that werewolf, that was really just a wolf. But when he's a werewolf, he's a man wolf. And nobody noticed that there's only 2 feet of the tracks. It's just like, you're expecting us to just accept a lot. And I can accept a lot when the story is there, but the story was not there.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, there is something missing that I think was present in all the other classic Universal horror films that we have covered.
I think something that kind of surprised me, and maybe it's something that comes later in the sequels with Lon Chaney Jr., but he had mentioned in an interview about his intention of injecting so much sympathy for Larry Talbot into the Wolfman so that when these things happen towards the end, you feel much more for him. but I think that all the other Universal monsters did that better.
Yeah.
I agree. I would have loved to have felt that way.
Yeah. I think you have to make him endearing at the start, but he kind of starts as an asshole.
Yeah.
$15?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is
You're
our...
gonna take my fucking money.
That's our guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go peep in your window. What are we doing?
And don't close it.
Yeah, isn't your dad a baron or some shit? Or
Like, they should have shown me fighting that bear.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe, because I mean, when you look at The Mummy,
yeah.
there's a lot of sadness there.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
How do you not have sympathy for this character? You know, but there's just something, like you're saying, something missing with Larry Talbot.
Mm-hmm.
And it so easily could have been done. And I got to be honest, I love the look of this Wolfman.
Yeah.
It is a shame that we maybe see it for
Yeah.
2 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think that there are some missed opportunities, and maybe it is, you know, a matter of its time. If there's too much, maybe that could be too much.
True.
Yeah.
True.
And who knows what the censors. I know that with the very limited makeup from Werewolf of London, people also said that they maybe limited it because of the censors.
Right.
Okay.
And so they're like, we can't show this werewolf fucking for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, not, I didn't know.
Wow.
That's a different film.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's your problem.
Yeah. That's, yeah, of course the censors are going to have a problem. But I you know, getting past all that.
Moving on.
Yes, I do have to say there is a lot of charm in this film that I feel like all of these Universal horror pictures have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that even in little moments of like the double edits of people like taking pipes out of their mouth twice,
Yeah.
or him entering a room twice, there is this charm there to it. I think that the aesthetics of it are amazing, and 84 years later, they still are.
Yeah.
I really do have a lot of positive things to say about it, but it really is the story that kind of keeps it from being, to me, one of the greater ones.
Yeah.
I think for its impact, it is a great one, but comparatively, I'm going to watch The Invisible Man.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, there's really not a lot bringing me back to the Wolfman, unfortunately, but I do think that there is a lot here to really appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we can quickly slide into ratings.
Yeah.
I think that, as you said earlier, Nay, I really think that the performances in this film are really fantastic. Claude Rains is brilliant.
Yeah.
Maria Uspenskaya,
Mm-hmm.
Lon Chaney Jr., I think everyone does a really, really good job. I think that it is, like we're saying, where it's just the characters. And honestly, I would like more Bela Lugosi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
You have him here. Give him
Yeah.
a little bit more to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a scene of them in town once they arrive.
And get him in that wolf makeup, man.
Why not?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if maybe they're like, well, we can't give it away just yet.
Yeah, maybe.
But Lugosi werewolf is going to look different from Chaney werewolf.
yeah.
That's true.
So do it. Although it would really fuck up Lon Chaney, not Lon Chaney's story, but Larry Talbot's story. He's like, but he was standing on 2 feet.
But it was a
But
wolf.
I swear to God. Something else I did read in the original screenplay, Siodmak made it ambiguous whether or not Larry Talbot was actually a werewolf or not.
Oh, okay.
And you never see any kind of transformation. The only thing that you see at the end is after he's shot, he looks into a pool of water and he sees himself as a werewolf.
I kind of love that.
Okay.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But of course, Universal's like, no, we got to show the fucking werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called the Wolfman. But yeah, the music, the set design, the atmosphere, that set of the marsh is one of my favorite sets, just period.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant thing. I love the atmosphere of it. Again, it's the coming back to the story. In The Invisible Man, there's a lot of humor there. There's a lot of really neat effects that happen throughout the film.
Yeah.
Dracula, there's a lot of great moments. Frankenstein, The Mummy. I just feel like there's a few really good moments here, and then in between is a story that's kind of strung together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But as I said, you have to really, really respect it for all that it was able to accomplish, and the fact that in so many ways, all of the mythology that we really connect to werewolves in popular culture, at least like 90% of it came from this film.
Yeah,
True.
That's true.
But having said all that, out of 10 prescient pentagrams, I think in reality I might go a little lower, but I feel that there is just such a vibe to these Universal horror films that feels so cozy and so comfortable that I am going to bump it up just a little bit. And for me, out of 10 prescient pentagrams, I am going to give The Wolfman, 1941, 7 prescient pentagrams out of 10. I feel like it is great in so many ways, but in a lot of ways, it really holds itself back. It's more of a crescent moon.
Okay.
Than a full one.
Right.
But I will now open the floor to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's the other ones just shine a little brighter. I do like a lot of what's going on in this movie. And you're right, the acting isn't bad. It isn't that. It really is. It really just boils down to the story, how things are carried out, and the execution of what's going on. Because everybody does their job, but it is very, we do believe, we don't believe. I am going to tell you, but I'm still not going to listen. Hey, I'm going to warn you. I don't give a shit. It does kind of flip flop on itself, and it hurts it a lot for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree about the charm in all of them. You know what I mean? They do have, each one of them has their own little personal charm. I think for me, this one just is towards the bottom of the list so far.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to keep with those scores, I know my score might seem really low, but I think it's only because I'm going off of the other ones. So for me, on a scale from 1 to 10 prescient pentagrams, I'm going to give The Wolfman 1941 5.5 out of 10. Only because I'm keeping with what my other scores are. When we do, because we have before, when we move them around, because there's a bunch of these still. I know the side ones.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll move it around. I don't dislike this movie, but at the time where it sits, it is at the bottom of the list for these Universal movies for me.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And I agree. I've already said my issues with it. It is mostly the story. There are some fun moments. I can't even say this one isn't for me. I wouldn't watch it again, because I would watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that all of these films are entertaining. This one, again, is just at the bottom for me so far. But yeah, I think anything else would just be repeating myself. So on a scale from 1 to 10 prescient pentagrams,
You got it.
I gave The Wolfman 6 out of 10 prescient pentagrams. It is still fun. I still see the value in it. I respect all that came from this, and learning really all that came in werewolf lore from this is astounding. I like werewolf shit.
Yeah.
But again, get that story together.
Well, that's all from us at Pod Mortem. What would you rate The Wolfman, and what should we watch next? Let us know on Instagram at the Pod Mortem. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and like our Stairhole Productions page on Facebook. Be sure to follow each of us on Instagram and Blue Sky at TravisMWH, at Blood and Smoke, and at JuggaloDaddy84. Thanks again to Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Please consider pledging to our Patreon, where you'll gain access to over 200 hours of bonus content, our monthly schedule, our Discord server, and the opportunity to help us decide which films to cover. And if you're looking for Pod Mortem and Stairhole Productions merch, follow the link in our episode notes. Stay tuned until after the music for a special thank you to our Wendigo Getter patrons. And remember, while it can be fun to play games of chance and fortune, sometimes our fate is already written in the stars. Until next time. Thank you for staying tuned. We want to give a very special thank you to all of our Wendigo Getter patrons.
Woo, yeah.
I love you so much. A special thank you to
Chris Ontiveros, Kristen Lofton, Megan Martinez, Kimberly Bass, Sophie Hodson, Anthony Jerome M., Jordan Nash, Kent Morton, Lala Thomas, Travis and Nisa Hunter, Miguel Myers ATX, Jennifer Perez, Allison O'Neill, Carissa, TJ and Angie Bronson, Gabrielle Trevino, Applin Ontiveros, Karima Rhodes, Antonio Huerta, Kimberly Kleindienst, Will Brown, Sydney Smith, Osvaldo Soto, Bobby Holmes, Donna Eason, JD Rizak, Molly Gerhart, Armand Spasto, Aaron Aguirre, Eggy, William Barry, Charity Oxner, Amanda Six, Mandy Rainwater, Eden, Jordan Roberts, Dylan, Liz Heath, Spencer Montalvo, Pancake the Panda, John Ramos, Michael Newding, Alexis Roberts, Dan Laveau, Itzy M., Gary Horton, Leisha Olivier, Kate Lamp, Carlos and Sydney, Jessica Hunter, Helena Rudder, Alan Johnston, Mariah, Livy Fun, Scott Troutman Wise, Towton Watson, Mozzie Bear, Brittany G., Dave Burke, Daniel McGinnis, Emma Hagel Kissinger, Valerie G., Emiliana, Brian Glass, CB, Taylor Santana, Will Lewison, Angelique, Smelly Poo Poo Head, Beth Bauer, Cookie, Esperanza J., Jason Kyle OKC, Joshua Rumley, Danielle Peralta, Brandon, Sawyer Reese Farr, Sahara, Girl That's Scary, Cassandra, Andrea Simmons, Ashley Higuera, William and Xxena Rush, Ryan Brom, Megan Ochoa, Laura Lassiter,
Eileen O., Marissa E., Sydney, Megan M., Strangely Sarah, Christy Beck, Nancy and Andy, Amanda Lopez, Andy Terrell, Jason Hanovan, Katie K., Erica Morin, Cameron S., Tris Wynn, K.87, Mariah Jensen, Carrie A., Lonnie Lono, Powell, Kayla E., Maggie H., Murder Stina, Kristen Marcy, Ori81 Boricua, Look Like That One Girl, Bog Boy, Felnez63, Alita Pui, Probably My Jugs, Kate Thackeray, Wade Pack, A Lizard, Bay J., Jay Rich, Topher Williams, Elena Metler, Valerie K., Christy Lee Kruger, Professor of Humanity, Laura McCarricker, Naomi, Josh Smith, Autumn Green, Abby Kopp, Crystal 831, Skank Sinatra, Morgan Alexander, Tony Osteen, Julie Fredborg, Rihanna S., Daniel Taylor, Anna Kate, Heather Ortiz, Jen T., Kim H., August, Vengeance Spirit, Sam J. Green, Jenny May, Glittery Fab, Malik Caselli Armstrong, Scarly D., Toya Shea, Katie, Martin Shaw, Star, Tyler J., Daniel Dickerson, Cam Davies, Patrick Hoagland,
Raven, D., Wesley Tart, Kristen Jackson, Jacob Nordberg, Spencer, Samantha, Damian Grant, Half Price Horror, Clemmy, Erica, Jason X Rules, Karen Burrows, 203 Duncan, Aaron Norman, Stephen Rogers, Victoria Smith, Corey Gillen, Patricia A. Graham, Erasmo Pena, Danielle Wright, Tabitha Thomas, Connie Lingus, Becca Boo, Richard Murray, Irene, Sally Slater 52, Jordan McCarthy, Christy Michelle Wilson, Rosalind Harnias, Emily Rance, Amy, Lisa and Kathy, Mike H., Karen with a Y, Christian Sadler, Hannah, Sarah Jack, Casey L., Evelyn Knight, Paola Garcia, Nikki M., Ghastly Grandad, Megan and Alexandra Saldivar, Lisa Sykes, Sonny Jonas, Kelsey Niemeyer Cook, Martina LaForce, The Face Flowers, JG, Morgan Novello, Ashley, Alex M., Brandon C., Gordon Sutherland, Georgia Renland, Ashley Poe, Najee P., Seth Schaff, David Kermovner, Diana Joe, Connor Gormley, Carrie Parker, Katie Face, Yuko Imada, and Jane Pillsbury. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
We love and appreciate each and every one of you, and we hope that you know you make our hearts full as the moon.
Aww.
Yeah.
Oh.
Until next time.